Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast that looks at projects throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And on today's episode, we will be talking about the 8th episode of the Lazarus Project.
The season finale.
Season finale.
Yeah.
It's
been a long road.
It has. It's been 8 weeks of this topic, plus a couple sprinkled in the middle. So
yeah,
probably
we've been doing
closer
this for
to 12,
11, 12 weeks.
Yeah, 12 weeks. And it's finally reached a conclusion, kind of.
Yeah.
There's a couple of open-ended bits that we can talk about towards the end of this episode.
Yeah, it's just made me realise this is our last episode of September.
Yeah. And then we'll be going into
everyone's favourite month of the year,
Project October.
The one and only. It was such a huge success last year.
Yeah. And I just realised that I haven't done anything for it yet.
Me neither.
Woo! Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got some good stuff planned, though.
We do.
We planned out some of the major things. A couple of returning, maybe guests, but I was thinking returning topics.
Yep, and a bit of variance in topics as well.
Yes, yeah, one new thing. But we can talk about that a bit more at the end rather than up front here.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Before we get into anything, we do have time codes in the episode description. So if you want to skip this chatter, get straight to the 8th episode of the Lazarus Project, you can do so. Or in personal projects, we'll be talking about She-Hulk episode 5.
Yeah.
We were talking about Dragon House episode 5 and Power Rings episode 4.
Yeah.
Plus, I went to see a film in the cinema.
Ah, and I watched a few films over the weekend as well.
Ooh, nice. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be another long one.
It may well be.
Strap yourselves in.
Not as long as next week, probably, with all the stuff that's dropping all at once.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll talk about that when we talk about it. Before we get into that, how are you today, Lewis?
Yeah, fine. We were just saying before we recorded that, it's been such a, weird couple of months. This feels like back to routine for the first time in ages. And it's quite nice to step back into routine.
Yeah.
And then, things are going well at work.
Good.
Back to, just not... I don't think I've got anything planned for a while, events, and it's quite nice.
Yeah, and it's getting a bit colder, isn't it? I've got my blanket on here.
You do have your blanket on.
I mean, I'm wearing shorts and no socks, so that kind of is why.
No socks.
I know, yeah.
I do have socks on.
And trousers as well.
Yep. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah. Same as you, pretty much. Kind of a bit of a normal week. We had the bank holiday at the start for the royal funeral, but
we did.
Other than that, yeah, pretty standard week. Quite chill in a lot of ways. Keeping it healthy. No late nights. No unhealthy things. I'm not having any alcohol.
Yeah,
but there's nothing to show off about, really, is it? There's plenty of people who don't drink.
Yeah,
don't want to alienate our audience too much, but yeah, generally speaking, I'm pretty good.
That is good to hear.
So what was that first segment, Lewis?
Oh, you mean Project News?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, that's good. It'd be a bit weird if I had done that and we were on personal projects.
Oh god.
So I've got a couple of bit of news today. Oh, as always, I've googled the word project and just picked a couple of articles to talk about.
Cool.
The first one is from the Evening Standard, and an advert has just popped up over the headline.
Oh gosh.
Bro. I'm going to quickly refresh this page. Here we go. Will Smith finally plots his first project after slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars.
Chris Rock.
The Fresh Prince actor is reportedly being eyed to star in the adaptation of Marcus Sakie's novel Brilliance, which is also set to produce. It doesn't surprise me that his return is in something that he's producing.
No, that's not a surprise. He's quite involved. He's a bit of a Tom Cruise. He does all the bits and pieces.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
kind of got that star power where he can do what he wants.
yeah, he's probably involved in the production company and that sort of
Apparently,
thing.
Brilliance, the book, is been dubbed a passion project.
Okay.
For Will Smith.
Yeah.
Sounds
like it might be like what's it called? Sunshine. What's that one called where he's a dad?
Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness. I kept thinking like
Sunshine's a very different
Eternal
film.
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but I was like, it's
yeah.
not that. But yeah, like it sounds like maybe a bit of a drama. Might be an Oscar win for him. Although, where did they land on that? Is he allowed to?
So he is an Oscar winner, but he had to resign from the Academy,
right, for a certain amount of time, or
I think he's just resigned. Maybe in a few years they'll secretly let him back in.
Yeah. I mean, there's been people who've done plenty worse things who are a part of the Academy. So
yeah. The plot of Brilliance focuses on character Nick Cooper, a federal agent who works for the Department of Analysis and Response, and is tasked with tracking down the 1% of non-neurotypical people deemed abnorms or brilliants who are born with special powers.
Right, so not what I was thinking at all.
No.
So it's like X-Men, basically.
Yeah, Nick is the parent of a brilliant daughter.
Oh.
And is also an abnorm himself in a Blade Runner-esque twist.
Right. Oh, well, is that a spoiler for the film? You don't need to watch that now.
Yeah.
So when's this coming out? A couple of years? Hopefully we'll have forgotten that he's an abnorm by then.
Yeah, well, it's just been announced, so it'll be a while.
Yeah, 2026 maybe?
Yeah. I did wonder like how long it'd be until he kind of picks himself up again and is accepted in.
I'd kind of forgotten about that whole thing, to be perfectly honest. So
yeah,
I imagine the vast majority of people would just be like,
but it is still one of those things that you forget about it. But when Will Smith's name is mentioned, the first thing you think of is the slap.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it was weird, wasn't it?
It was weird, but everyone in Hollywood's weird.
Yeah, but I think because he's so carefully crafted this family-friendly image over the years, it was not the kind of thing you'd expect him to do. I mean, looking at the fact that his family are so kind of in the public eye and they're so
well crafted.
Yeah, but even like the stuff coming out about him and his wife's relationship and stuff in the lead up, it's not a surprise in that sense. It's just a surprise that it kind of came. It was very like airing your dirty laundry kind of thing, wasn't it? And it's just a bit like embarrassing, really, for everyone involved.
Yeah, it was highly entertaining though, and I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we'll get a return of Will Smith, a renaissance of Will Smith.
Renaissance,
like the
Smith. Smith-a-sons.
What was Matthew McConaughey's thing?
McConaissance.
Kind of
makes sense. Will-onaissance.
Sure, let's call it that. When newspapers start using that term, we'll direct them to episode 58 of the Project.
I think it might be 59.
Okay, and then we'll tell them to listen to that episode, and then listen. They'll enjoy it so much they'll then listen to episode 59.
Yeah, okay, good, and then they'll know what happens in the Lazarus Project.
Yeah, exactly.
It works out. Yeah, I get it. Good tactic.
And you know, as we've seen in certain TV shows recently, you can sue people for using your name even if you don't trademark it.
Hey, there's a good little it's just like that episode of Rings of Power.
Yep, everyone's suing each other in Rings of Power.
Gandalf, he's not even called Gandalf yet, and but he was wearing grey already, so they had that whole
Elrond was selling his new shoes nicknamed the Gandalf Runners. And he was like, fuck you, Elrond, that's Gandalf, my name.
Yeah. They come in grey and white, of course.
No, the left one's grey and the right one's white.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it?
Well, when people produce that, we'll turn them to episode 57.
Copyright, the Project.
The other bit of news I got is from The Independent, and it's not really news. It's just some fantastic quotes in this article.
Right, okay, yeah. I'm ready.
Is Jared Leto's 30 Seconds to Mars the most absurd vanity project in Hollywood history?
Are we supposed to answer this?
Well, the writer Ed Power very much says yes. Yes, they are.
I would have agreed.
And I liked 30 Seconds to Mars. Their first few albums are pretty good. I went to see them.
Yeah.
Seen them a couple of times. They were pretty good. But I would say over the last 10 years, they have become a bit weird. And more Jared Leto focused than just like...
Yeah, I can't picture or name any of the other members, but he is like a different level of fame than the rest, isn't he?
It was him, the lead singer guitarist. His brother, Shannon, is the drummer.
Okay.
And the bassist was a guy called Tomo Milosevic.
Okay.
But then he quit like 5 years ago, and it's now just him and his brother.
Right. Okay.
So it's basically him, and he writes all the songs.
Yeah.
This article came from, he did an interview with Kerrang, and he said he wrote like 200 songs during lockdown. He had nothing better to do.
Yep.
But I'll try and pick out some of the great quotes.
Okay.
So here's one. If Morbius, the magic vampire, was a rock band, it would be 30 Seconds to Mars, a shouty, scary riot of ego, hair, melodrama, and teeth. And I was like, okay.
Has he seen his own film? I mean, I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty sure he's not a magic vampire.
Oh no, this is what the writer's saying about.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was his response to a question in Kerrang. Morbius, the magic vampire.
The writer also said on the 27th of August, it was the 20th anniversary of the band's self-titled debut, a record that combined the self-awareness of U2, the humility of the 1975, and the subtlety of Muse during their peak conspiracy theory years.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm
quite enjoying.
Dripping with sarcasm there, isn't it?
Yeah, and like Jared Leto's a weird man. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, there was something I heard recently about during the filming of Suicide Squads, where apparently he would go to stand-up shows with his Joker hair. So he'd have his green hair and he would just like do an obnoxious laugh, a bit like in the new Joker film, you know, the new one, the Joaquin Phoenix one, where he's just like laughing out of time. He'd just go and just do his annoying Joker laugh over everyone. And it was like all these comedians in Toronto just like talking about this for years after. Like, did he come to your show? Yeah, he came to my show. Did he ruin it? Yeah. Were you allowed to kick him out? No. Were you allowed to draw attention to it? No. So he's a bit of a prat, really, isn't he?
Oh yeah, totally. When I saw them, they put on a good show.
I'm sure they do. Yeah, I mean, he's by definition a very theatrical person, isn't he? But
oh yeah, and like he's almost quite suited to be like the front man of a rock
totally,
band.
Yeah. I mean, which kind of came first? He was an actor first.
Yeah,
so Fight Club is like what, 99?
But he was in that TV show before, wasn't he? Like
I don't know.
What was it? But their first album was in like 98. But he was like a...
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
And then because obviously...
Of course, you just said the timeline there, didn't you? So...
Oh, no, it was 20 years ago, 2001.
Oh, wow. Oh, no.
It was my so-called life.
I can't turn this around to show you, but I just opened IMDb on Jared Leto's page, and it came up with an article before they were famous, actors in early roles. And I didn't realize, and I went, wow, he looked really different when he was younger. That's a picture of Courtney Cox.
Yeah, he was in My So-Called Life in 1994.
Right, is that like a sitcom, isn't it?
Yeah, American teen drama. And then Fight Club in 99, American Psycho in 2000, Requiem for a Dream in 2000. So he kind of shut up then.
Yeah.
And then like the band kicked off.
Yeah, he was in quite a bit before Fight Club then. Yeah, I can see there's a couple of little roles here and there. TV movies.
But he's one of those people, like, he was very much made to be a Hollywood celebrity.
Yes.
Like, for better or worse.
Yeah, he's certainly a character, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess this means we'll get another couple of 30 Seconds to Mars albums coming out soon.
Yeah.
I didn't really like their last two.
I haven't listened to any of their albums apart from that first one, which I did have on CD. Or no, maybe not the first one, the one with the kill on it.
Oh, A Beautiful Lie. That was the second one. That was a good album.
Yeah,
like,
see, that was a solid album. Very kind of its time.
Yeah.
Like a softer, I wouldn't even say softer Linkin Park. It was kind of its own thing in a little way.
Yeah. And they followed that with, I can't remember what the album's called, but it had like Kings and Queens on. That was a pretty good album.
Oh, yeah, that rings a bell,
And there was a song Hurricane, which he then redid with Kanye West.
Right. Okay,
And like that is the most obvious like matchup.
Yeah. I mean, ego-wise, I'm surprised that even managed to get out of the studio. But
it was either one of those where like they're either gonna hate each other or be like best friends.
Yeah, because they're both kind of like, yeah, man, yeah, like
you're the best, man. Yeah, you're the best. Yeah.
I mean, depending on when it
suck
was.
each other's cocks.
I mean, Kanye West has always been a bit like that, but he's more like that in the last 15 years than he's always had a lot of self-belief, which you kind of have to get anywhere in a kind of showbiz business. I was gonna say,
in show business, yeah, definitely. But yeah, maybe we'll follow the trajectory of Jared Leto.
If he releases anything with project in the title,
could you imagine?
We'll be sure to cover it. I mean, I would happily do an album if it was called the Jared Project.
They
might as well be.
His poor brother.
Shannon.
Yeah.
I thought you were trying to remember.
No,
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh no, I was a big fan back in the day, as we've discussed previously on pod.
Yeah. Who was your favourite from Jared Leto?
No, I really liked Tomo Milosevic. I think his surname was. He was just like he was a classic bassist of just like chill guy who just played bass. But yeah. Anyway, that is project news for the week. Nothing to get excited about like last week when we had the game
Project Zero Fatal Frame.
I'm glad you remember what it is, because I don't.
I do. I was going to start looking into whether we could do one in the near future, but I never did.
Not nice.
As I said, I haven't done any prep for Projectober.
No, me neither. I kind of forgot.
Not forgot, but just haven't done it yet.
I've been so focused on the Lazarus Project
of course,
that I haven't been able to think about.
We'll do something
else.
really, boring next week so that we can. Oh wait, is next week?
Next week's Project October.
No!
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll start off easy, I think.
Yeah, we will do.
And we need to arrange with our guests.
Plethora of guests.
Yeah, because last year we had a guest for every episode.
Yeah, I think we'll do it a bit different this time, won't we?
Yeah, and we've got different stuff planned. But anyway.
Yeah, we are talking about Lazarus.
Yeah, the Lazzy Proj episode 8.
Lazarus.
So if again, as always, if you want the full details of everything behind the scenes, go back to episode 1 and then listen to all 8 episodes on the Lazarus Project.
And the episodes in between.
Yeah, of course. But in summary, it's created by Joe Barton, starring Paparazzi, Tom Burke, Angeli Mahidra, Caroline Quinton, Charlie Clive, Rudy Darmalingam, Lorne MacDonald, Vanette Robinson, and Brian Gleeson.
Yes.
The main ones being Paparazzi, Angeli Mahindra, and Rudy Darmalingam.
I would say so, yeah. They're the main 3.
Yeah.
The core 3.
The core 3.
You don't really get on very well by this point, do they?
Because it's the end of the season, I looked on IMDb. I was getting the episode rating, which I'll ask you for a bit.
Okay.
But I was also going to see if there was any trivia. And the one bit of trivia was, it's been renewed for season 2. I was like,
I wasn't sure if you'd looked it up. Yeah. I saw an article from early August saying that it'd been renewed for 2023.
Yeah.
And as the way this season ends, you'd be goddamn hoping that it was.
Yeah. But I looked at the reviews as well, and there was lots of positive reviews. And lots of people in the positive reviews complaining that people were review bombing it.
Oh, really?
Apparently because it's kind of a small time thing, we didn't really notice. But
yeah.
given that they're the three main characters, I'm not overly surprised.
Right. So in a kind of we want more white people on the screen way, right?
I
see.
It's woke TV.
I hadn't really considered that the three main characters
Nor
were
non-white
people.
Nor had I. Hadn't crossed my mind.
I didn't know where you were going with that, genuinely. That's nice that we're so we just don't see race, we just don't see race.
I was obviously aware that George was black. So we discussed his surname, and we discussed a bit in Romania when we were like, oh, maybe they're racist.
And he was like, yeah, we don't do the white supremacist stuff so much. Like they there's been jokes,
but I never kind of stopped and thought about the fact that the three main characters are people of color.
Yes, yeah,
and cool. That's the way to do it. Just have them as characters, and if they're not white, cool.
And it's turned out to be one of the best things that we've covered this year, I'd say.
It really has.
If not the best thing.
It's been one of. Oh, we should maybe include that in our end of years. Anyway, what was it?
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
it's been one of the few things that we've done that I've actually recommended to people in real life without talking about the pod.
Yes,
being like, oh, have you watched anything good recently? I was like, oh yeah, I've been watching this series on Sky One.
Yeah,
called The Lazarus Project. You should check it out. It's good. Because it has been good.
It has been good, yeah, consistently, and lots of the stuff, like you say, that we've been going into here and there. It's either not for us, like it's a Saturday morning cartoon, like Zeta.
Yeah, this is very much for us.
Yes, it's almost tailor made for us in many ways, isn't it? But yeah. So the IMDb's then, what were the previous ones then?
The previous two is like 7.0 and 7.2.
Yeah, and I know that you've said that this was the highest rated episode.
It was.
And I keep going like 8.9 because
you do.
But if I was looking recently, not to go on a tangent too early, but I was looking at recent films that I haven't seen, and a lot of their IMDb scores are like around the 7, and I'm like, around 7, and they're films that I would think, oh, they're pretty good ones. So I'm gonna go with 7.6.
Oh, that's an interesting number.
I think I'm probably like 1 point off.
It's 7.9.
What? The one time I don't go high, for fuck's sake.
7.9. So
for fuck's sake. Okay. Well, I'm never gonna get this right ever.
So it was the highest rated episode of the season.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I laughed.
But I think the season finale is always going to be that. That's what got us with Blue Book, wasn't it?
That is right. Yeah. Yeah. We were just covering the highest rated episodes at one point, weren't we? I think there's still something to that. Kind of a shame we didn't follow through.
I mean, we've got so many ongoing things like Zeta and Blue Earth, SOS,
White Rabbit,
Lazarus.
Probably one more.
No, I think that's it. So before we get into the episode, Sam, summarize 7 hours of TV for us in 1 minute.
Oh God, are you going to put a timer on?
No.
Okay, I'll do it based on the time here. Okay, so George is a software engineer. He finds out he has the ability to remember time loops, which are happening from the 1st of July and kind of sporadically. He's in a relationship with Sarah. He has a nice 6 months with her. Then it loops back of its own accord. And he's like, what's going on? Has a bad 6 months. Loops again. He gets approached by Archie, who works for the Lazarus Project, which is a kind of semi-government international agency that prevents extinction level events. Sarah dies in a traffic accident and he wants to turn back time. He ends up linking up with a ex-Lazarus agent called Rebrov. He steals a nuke, sets it off, gets chased by his fellow agent Shiv, kills Shiv, manages to reset. Sarah breaks up with him, not going the way he wants it to. And then just before the loop on the 1st of July, the start of the 1st of July, he shoots Shiv and it ends. And then there's a reset. That was just over a minute.
Pretty good.
There's a weird reset where the sky like comes down and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he'd just been caught for Shiv's murder by a policeman.
Yeah.
So we start the last episode ended where it loops back to the point where he just killed Shiv because he shot him like right before midnight going into the 1st of July. So unfortunately, every time they would reset from this point on, Shiv would have just been shot and pretty much bleed out immediately.
Oh, Shiv has a really rough time with this, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. So this is the second time in the series that he's died and come back to life, basically. Maybe not a second. I don't know. There's quite a few in this episode.
Oh boy, is there.
I remember we were talking about last episode, and I think I was quite worried that it kind of not lost its way, but this whole sky opening up was a bit more sci-fi looking. And I was thinking maybe it was going to be a bit kind of high concept for what's a fairly grounded kind of time show. But I don't think it kind of sticks to its roots with this episode quite well.
Yeah. So shall we get into it? Because we start all the way back in the wonderful year of 2012.
Yes.
It looks like summer. I just finished college and I was getting ready to go to university. Yeah. Little would I know that later that year I'd meet a certain Sam.
Yeah. In the student union, drinking Jaeger bombs.
And snakebite.
And there was a limbo competition.
Was there?
Yeah.
Did I win?
Oh, no, you missed it because you went home.
Oh, why did I do that? I'm great at limbo contests. I always win limbo contests.
I don't think I saw you for like 3 months. No. Then we were on the same seminar. Anyway, there's the Q&A section. But yeah, so we get the flashback, which most episodes have started with a flashback of sorts, haven't they?
Yeah, I'd say 5 or 6.
I think it was only the first one that didn't, and then maybe another one in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's Dennis, who is Rebrov. Dennis Rebrov. So it's an easier way of saying it.
And let's call him Dennis. Oh, no, that's too obvious. D. Rebrov.
He's the one who has gone off the rails and become a bit of a time loop terrorist in the present day.
Yeah.
And he's with Janet, who is at some point after this his partner, mother of his child's sort of thing. And they are kind of being flirty and cute. It's somewhere like, what's that point in London? I can't remember what it's called. I don't live in London. Highbury Park.
It could just be like Hyde Park or something.
Hyde Park, probably. I don't know.
They're walking through a nice park and they're just chatting. And Rebrov basically asks Janet out. But he's really like nervous and awkward about it. It's kind of a side of Rebrov we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And it's quite cute and endearing.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, all I think about is you. But he's very kind of like cautious. And then she's like, yeah, I think about you too. Yeah. Why would I not go out with you? Yeah. He gets a text. And she's like, who's that? And he's like, oh, nobody.
Yeah, and he's sitting on a bench, and I think she takes a photo of him directly after he gets the text.
Yeah, or as he's reading
it. And I noted that he had a shit phone even for 2012. I know it's probably because they're agents and they've got like burner phones.
Yeah.
In 2012, I'm pretty sure I had a very early smartphone.
I think I either had a BlackBerry...
Yeah.
Or a Samsung Galaxy.
Yeah, I think I would have had not a BlackBerry, but something.
I had a BlackBerry when I was in college, but I think by that point I might have moved on to Galaxy.
In the first year at uni, I definitely had some sort of smartphone.
God, you make us sound so old.
No.
Kids these days had smartphones when they started secondary school.
Yeah. I know. I would have. I had Instagram when I was in college, so I would have had a smartphone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Starting up that project Instagram page.
Yeah. If you look back, it's been going since 2011.
Yeah, anyway, they agreed to go on a date and they kiss.
Yes.
And then we go to Hamburg.
Yeah.
Which featured heavily in the last episode.
It did, yeah.
And it goes 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks from present day, not 2012.
Yeah.
And Janet's in like a garage of some sort.
Yeah, she's like scribbling a note, and I think it looks like she's handcuffed.
She's a hostage.
Yeah.
And we've seen this room before last episode because there was a shootout that the Lazarus Project turned up to have a look at.
Did, yeah.
And then she hears shots, and woman who we have seen a picture of before,
Yes.
called Zhang Rui,
yeah.
is standing with her, and she uncuffs her, and kind of runs out the door with her.
She's like, "Come with me, don't try and escape." She's got a gun on her, and she's like, "Let's go."
And they run out the door, and then Shiv is there.
Shiv runs
He's
in.
killed a load of people, and he's obviously looking for Janet.
Yes.
And then he finds a note that simply says, "It'll be worth the wait."
Yes. And then there's some Chinese characters you can see in the bottom right corner.
Yeah. And we don't know what any of this means.
We don't know what this means. But when we saw the crime scene in the previous episodes, it looked like Shiv had rescued Janet from it.
It did, yeah.
That was the way they figured out it was Janet, and they were pretty sure it was
two
Shiv.
people had left together.
Yes.
But it was Zhang and Janet, not Shiv.
Yeah.
But then we go back to the 1st of July. Whoop whoop.
Present day. In this.
And Shiv's just been shot by George in George's flat.
Yes, and he does what the fuck was that again? Because
yeah,
normally they get the reset is normally they're told about it normally now.
Yeah, but this is just happening.
Just happen randomly.
And he tries to get the note out of Shiv's pocket, but it's covered in blood.
Yes.
And
at this point, I was like, that's probably that same note, but we don't know for sure because it's bloodstained.
And in the previous episode, his neighbor had knocked on the door and he kind of played it off, being like, "Oh, I've got new speakers," but then accidentally opened the door more and there was blood on the t-shirt.
Yeah.
And then he dragged the body into the lift and it was spotted on the cameras, and that's how the police turned up.
Yes.
This time, because that's already happened, he thinks about it more clearly. So he hears the door knock.
Yeah.
Changes his t-shirt this time.
Yeah.
And kind of plays off.
Leans into the speaker. He's like, "Oh, I got new speakers. The gunshot almost made me jump out of my skin," kind of thing. He's like, "Yeah, it was fucking loud." Sorry, mate.
And I think his name was called Reggie.
Yeah, I think that's
he
right.
plays it a lot better this time. And Reggie's like, "Oh, cool, man. Don't spell it. Don't worry."
It's at like exactly midnight, so it's kind of late to have like real life sounding gunshots.
Yeah, and I think it's a Thursday.
It might be, yeah.
I think that's what it says on the clock.
Right. But this time Wes calls because obviously they've all experienced the same reset.
Yeah, and she's like, "George, you need to come in."
Yeah. And then there's a bit of a kind of sci-fi exposition-y bit
right,
here.
So I've written this down.
Yeah, cool,
so George gets to Lazarus and Wes is explaining what's happened. Because we were like, this weird sky things happen.
Yeah.
It wasn't them. She says I had to rewind twice to get this all written down.
I've got a couple of bits here as well.
She says there was an emission of gravitational radiation caused by two black holes merging.
Right.
The whole universe got zapped.
Yeah.
So that's what's caused this blue thing and reset time.
Yeah. And there's a new singularity.
Yeah.
Because the thing that they used to use was a singularity in space.
Yeah.
That they would pass in their orbit once on the 1st of July each year. And they could somehow use some sort of time machine that we don't know about.
They've theorized that someone has made a copy of the black hole, and that's what's caused this issue.
Yes.
And they do a good bit of plot hole covering here that I didn't think about, where Wes says there's a dead man's switch saying if the world ends and nobody's there to reset, it automatically resets.
So I suppose that means if they said there's no time machine, but if whatever's doing the triggering of it gets destroyed, that triggers the dead man switch.
So it's not that the singularity has pushed them back in time.
No,
it's destroyed the world.
Yes,
and the dead man's switch has sent them back in time.
That's right. Yeah. And because that's 3 weeks from the 1st of July.
Yeah,
they are effectively for the foreseeable future on a 3-week loop unless they can stop.
It's like a Groundhog Day.
So it kind of sets up this kind of premise quite early on in the episodes.
But it's kind of weird to set up this new premise in a season finale.
It is. And at what point did you realize that this wasn't going to be resolved? I think I paused at one point and there was 10 minutes left of the episode and I went, okay, we're definitely going to get a season 2, or they want a season 2.
I think I got that, and it was about 5 minutes left, and I was like, okay. Wes doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
She says singularities don't just appear overnight. She said if somebody wanted to turn back time, how would they go about doing it? This could be an option. George suggests maybe Janet's got something to do with it.
I think they say if they needed their own machine, they'd get someone who knows how to do it.
And they reckon the Chinese are involved.
Yeah, and we find out a bit later that Janet is like super intelligent. Like she was maybe involved in the tech side of it. I know she was a natural mutant, so she had the ability from birth.
But she's like a super genius.
But she's super genius as well. So she might have been involved in certain, adapting of it or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it predated her joining the Lazarus. But her being a X/rogue agent is a perfect person to kind of pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the other topic, the Chinese agents grabbing her is pretty much what we predicted last episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we suggested that because there's a mention of this Chinese agent, and we suggested that maybe they'd be trying to start their own Lazarus Project.
We did, and we did come up with a name for it.
Yes, and I can't remember what it was. It was based on Chinese mythology, or folklore. You came up with. You did a quick little bit of research on air.
Yeah,
and I still think they could do that next season.
Oh, definitely.
If they did the same thing as you, have just gone like Chinese folklore about resurrection.
Oh, quickly,
it's like something Poe project. I don't want I kind of freeballed
Meng Po.
I kind of freeballed that idea based on the fact that there was a Chinese agent and we had this random reset.
Yeah,
and it's pretty accurate guess there, really.
But so
he goes to see.
So another thing that happened in the last episode in this 3 weeks is that he got a text from his ex-girlfriend saying, "Can we meet?"
Yeah.
And he went down there, and it turns out she's met a new guy. She's going to get married, and he's a bit pissed off.
Yeah.
Like, this could have been a text.
It was 9 months or so after they'd broken up.
Yeah.
And
after
yeah,
he proposed, she said yes, and then she was like, actually, you were actually pretty boring.
That's it, yeah. So it was a bit of an intense day for him, what with the shooting of Shiv that morning as well.
Yeah, his ex getting married.
Yeah. So I think this time he just walked straight past the cafe, doesn't he?
He goes to see Sarah, and then she says she's found someone, and he gets up and leaves.
Straight through, right, okay.
And it was like, yeah, whatever.
And then he gets the cleaning stuff again, wraps Shiv up again.
Archie doesn't answer her phone still.
Yeah, this again doesn't call Lazarus. I feel like he should have learned.
No, but he has learned this time in terms of he sprays the camera
with spray paint
so it can't see it.
Yeah.
And instead of blowing the car up at the docks, he takes it down to like a river.
Yeah, he chucks
and dumps the body.
It's like an overpass thing.
Yeah. And it's like he is learning.
Yeah.
He's lucky he got a second go at this, really.
I still think, especially as it keeps looping throughout the episode, I think he should have just been more transparent about it with Lazarus.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I know that he feels...
So he can play it off as well and say Shiv attacked him.
Yeah. And what that will mean is that they can get like a cleanup crew there within like half an hour, sort it all out, and then he doesn't have to have this stress and go like a bit mad, which he does,
Yeah, but George is an idiot.
Yes, and there's some incredibly idiotic things he does in this, including stealing classified material and giving it to his ex-girlfriend.
Oh yeah, he does do that.
Some very strange things.
But then we then head over to Shanghai.
We do, yeah.
And we're with Archie. Last we saw of Archie, she was sent off on a mission by Wes. We didn't know what it was, and we haven't seen her since. But she's not answering her phone.
Yeah,
she's at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And
Chinese restaurant, I think.
That makes sense. Yeah. She's in Shanghai.
Could be anything.
She asks a waitress if she's seen this person that she's looking for, and the waitress is like, "No, don't know her." And Archie's like, "It's your sister, you fucking bitch.
This is definitely your sister, so don't lie."
And points the gun at the waitress, gets her to sit down, and is like, "Where is she?" She's like, I don't know where she is." And she like cocks her gun, and then the waitress starts to write something down.
Writing. And then she's sneaking into some building. She cracks a code using a app on her phone. Probably
Yeah.
one George made.
Yeah, quite possibly. And as soon as she goes in there, there's 5 guys.
5 guys.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, do you know what? A burger and chips would be great right now."
Yeah, especially if it's all in foil, it's all melted up and
And it
steamed.
turns out the waitress's sister works at 5 Guys.
Yeah, so she's just made a nice burger platter for her.
5 Guys comes up so much on this podcast.
I mean, it's been the last 3 episodes.
Because it's Project Moonbase as well.
Oh, yeah. And that Michael Jordan story that I told so eloquently.
Yeah, it's just...
I should have done a bit of research in between because there was more to that story that I couldn't remember.
But it's actually 5 men.
5 men.
With guns, and they all pointing at Archie, and we see from the other side of the door.
Yeah, all through the door. She's been perforated.
But then we go back again.
We do.
To the 1st of July. And then like it's back to Shiv and George. And just as
there was
shot,
a pizza. Yeah, look, I've got it here, right? Okay. This is
sit back and relax.
Okay. Here's something. And it was Game 5 of the 1997 NBA Finals.
Not Game 5.
Yeah. So they mentioned it on The Last Dance, which was that.
How many people were on a basketball starting lineup?
No idea. Is it 5?
It's 5 guys.
So it was the flu game. Michael's order was a large, thin and crispy pizza with extra pepperoni. He insists, because he was a new employee, this guy, made sure he followed the food prep guidelines to a T. All the ingredients were fresh. Nothing was added that could have gotten Jordan sick. So apparently, yeah. So Michael Jordan says that there was 4 or 5 guys, but the guy said it was just him and his delivery driver. I don't know why he came along at all. I guess he knew it was Michael Jordan there. Yeah. But I think he got flu from it. Michael Jordan did.
It's weird.
Not only does Fight deny contaminating the pie to make Jordan ill, he doesn't think Jordan had food poisoning at all. Not from his pizza, at least. So yeah, there is a story out there if anyone wants to read it in full.
Yeah, maybe you should have gone to 5 Guys instead.
Maybe you should.
Instead of having 5 Guys come to him.
But the 5 Guys that Archie has just didn't really go down very well, did it? So
she got worse than the flu.
She got worse than the flu. But like you say, there's a reset, and George kind of tries to tell Shiv about the singularity.
Yeah, like in that second before Shiv dies, he's like, it's a singularity.
And Shiv kind of does a bit of a recognize, like you can see something on his face.
George tries to get the note quickly, but still ruined.
Yeah.
And then we rush through a bit here where he meets Sarah.
No, he doesn't talk to Sarah this time. This is when he walks past
he walks past Sarah. Archie doesn't answer the phone. He's cleaning the Shiv mess.
Wrapping Shiv up.
But then this time, as he's putting Shiv into the body.
Into the boot of the car.
His car.
Yeah. So he's wrapped up in like plastic and then a rug. It's very kind of obvious mafia body bag situation.
But then Sarah's suddenly there.
Yes, because she's come to find him because
he didn't turn up to this meeting. And she sees that he's got this body, and she said she's waited for an hour,
like dripping out of the end of it. Because he's obviously not wrapped it up very well.
And she waited for an hour at the restaurant, so obviously she's going to check up on him. She spots the blood dripping and runs.
Yes.
And George's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, he loads the body in, starts trying to go around to where she'd be in his car. He tries to cut her off. And does he pulls like right in front of her, doesn't he? And
she runs in front of the car and he slams on his brakes.
Right, okay, yeah.
And he's like,
I can explain this. Get in the car.
Yeah.
And she's like,
well, you'd never get in that car, would you?
Especially
no
not
way.
He doesn't know that she's getting married, but she broke up with him 9 months ago, and now she's found him with a body.
Yeah,
it's red flags, as many people would say.
I think there's few bigger red flags than finding somebody loading a dead body wrapped in a rug into their boot.
I think if you've got a good relationship with that person at that time, you can probably you can maybe think this person's not immediately going to kill me. Maybe I can talk
like
through
the
it.
time I helped you with your rug in your boot.
But that's not. For
Oh shit, you have to bleep that out.
Yeah, that bug that was in my roof. Yeah.
You mean, are we talking about Damien?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that bug.
I was a real bug. So he gets in the car. She gets in the car with him, and he's telling her about Lazarus. And then he takes her to Lazarus.
Yeah, but first he's like, yeah, his name's Shiv. He's a friend of mine.
Oh, right.
But yeah, he takes her to Lazarus.
I don't know what the security's like. Well, we find out later. Anyone could just walk in.
Yeah. And like we said, like back in like episode 1 or 2, he should just tell her about Lazarus.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's the first episode. He's like, yeah, I got the loan from the bank to do my app company.
Yeah.
Well, she it's a white lie where she goes, did you get it? And he goes, yeah. And then there's a certain amount of time where it's a whole year where they're together.
Yeah, he makes such a big deal. He's literally spent this entire season trying to get her back because he loves her. But he just lies to her face like all season.
Last episode, we had quite a lot of good dialogue and kind of introspection about how he had this idealized version of her.
Yeah.
That he didn't really think about what would happen when he brought her back and whether she would, she might not want to stay with you indefinitely.
She's her own person,
and
George.
She didn't within 3 months though.
But yeah, when they're in the car as well, she's like, have you killed before?
Yeah.
And he's like, I've killed a lot of people. Bad people.
Yeah, but also all the people good people.
You set off a nuke in Romania.
I mean, he's telling her one step at a time. He doesn't tell her in this loop that he's a time traveling agent.
No.
Although, yeah, not really. One of the last things she says in this episode is about time travel. She's kind of got the wrong end of the stick a little bit there.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's how you would explain it.
He's very vague.
He is very vague, yeah.
But yeah, he to prove who he is, he gets up his profile on his computer at Lazarus and is like, look, it's me.
And there's Shiv as well, even though she doesn't see the body. So she and of course, because files on computers are so sexy.
Yeah,
just
and
the sexiest
as we
thing.
know, George doesn't know anything about computers, so he couldn't have made any of this up.
No, he couldn't have hired an office space with no one in it at that point. There's no one in the office. I say office, it's like an MI6 style open plan, kind of strangely architectural thing. Yeah. And so they cuts to them in his flat, their old flat.
Are getting it on.
And they are sexing
because she broke out of him because he was born in and unadventurous, and then she finds out he's a secret agent.
Yes, or a serial killer with a knack for app development.
Yeah,
we don't really.
This episode, when I went to watch it, it started with him waking up with Sarah in bed, and he gets up, and she's like, "Can I have some toast?"
Yeah,
and mentions the tits. Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, they've gone back to like episode 1 to start the season finale," and then it carried on, and I was like, "This is going on for what?" So I skipped to like mid-episode, and I was like, "Oh fuck, I'm just watching episode 1."
Nice little refresher.
Yeah. But this definitely feels like the sort of series that would start with the beginning of episode 1 and episode 8.
Just like when I had Infinity Project, and I thought it was skipping. If this had skipped around mid sentence, I would have thought it was part of the whole thing.
Yeah. But George wakes up in the morning to Sarah leaving.
Yes, and she says something like, I can't believe that my ex-boyfriend's a spy.
He's like, don't tell anyone.
He's like, I hate when you call me your ex. And she's like, me too. And it's like, this is
because in this timeline she hasn't told him because he didn't go to the cafe.
Yes.
So he then says, what were you going to say in the cafe? And she was like, oh, nothing. And it's like, oh, fuck off, Sarah. You're literally engaged.
Sarah's a bad person.
She's like, literally engaged. And then she finds out her ex is like a murderer / secret agent. And she's like, oh, fuck my new guy.
Fuck my boring, slightly more interesting than George 9 months ago. But not nearly as interesting as George, the time-traveling murderer.
Yeah, but he's like, I'm only going to be here for 3 weeks. So...
Yeah, which is quite... he's very manipulative in his own way. We've compared him to kind of a Heisenberg character in some of his plotting.
Yeah.
But this in itself is very like, you need to make the most of this feeling now. And it's kind of a bit gross.
It really is.
Do you know what I mean? Because she doesn't think that he knows because he's got no reason to know.
But he knows.
He full well knows. But I guess in one way he's like, it's going to reset in 3 weeks. So
doesn't matter.
Which is just, it's a bit
weird.
She's going to remember this by the end of the episodes.
Huh.
So I don't know how well that will pan out. She starts getting...
What?
There'll be a lot of things that she starts remembering. I don't know if any of them are going to cause particular problems, but well, we'll talk about it at the end. But there's implications to what happens with her.
Okay. But she leaves and he's like all happy because he's back with Sarah.
Yeah.
We get a quick bit of him dumping the body again.
Yeah.
And then we get back to Archie talking to the waitress.
Shanghai.
And she's like, she writes down the address again. She's like, I know there's going to be 5 guys in there. I'm not hungry. I've just eaten. And then shows the waitress a picture of like her parents and her son and was like, give me the actual address this time.
Yeah, she's like, I don't want any agents waiting for me.
And I don't want a burger.
I don't want no food poisoning. We've got an important NBA game tomorrow.
Yeah. And Archie this time's in like a very nice room with lighting that's too bright to be asleep to.
Yes.
But there is a woman asleep in a bed.
Yes, it's what's she called?
Zhang Rui.
Zhang.
And she pointing a gun at her and she pulls out handcuffs. They do a bit of punchies.
Yeah, she handcuffs onto her. So Archie and Zhang are handcuffed together, and then she kind of knocks her down and knocks her out because she's seems to be better at fighting than her, or at least she's got like a bit of a upper hand.
And my understanding here is Zhang shoots herself.
She half knocks Archie out, kind of like socks her in the face. She falls down, she grabs Archie's gun, and just blows her own brains out.
Because she's obviously, what seems like also aware of these loops.
Well, at this point, I think it's like, whoa, that's shocking. Like, is it like, I think the reaction I had was more like, oh shit, like they're like so intense that they're willing to take secrets to the grave kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's Archie's, she's like shocked that someone has done this.
I think at this point, I was like, I'm enjoying this. I was kind of hoping more of the plot would happen, considering this is the finale.
Yeah, I think it was around, this is about halfway, maybe, not even, maybe about a third through. I've got a lot more notes here, but that's about a third.
I think I'm nearly halfway in my notes.
I can't, I've just... Yeah, but either way, it was around now that I was kind of thinking, right, this is not going to be at least satisfyingly concluded.
Yeah. We then get George and Sarah at the park on a little date. And he's like, oh, I missed you. And she's like, oh, I missed you. Apart from when I found another guy and got engaged.
Well,
I'm not going to tell you that.
He's going away tomorrow at this point. So they've spent a whole 3 weeks together, potentially.
Yeah.
Or at least, when
Sarah's
they can in between.
Sarah's like, come find me when you get back.
Yeah. I was thinking this is a fluke and it's not going to be able to happen again, because the fact that she stumbled across him having the body and he had to convince her in such a specific way.
And because it's happened, he's going to overthink it and try and retread all the steps.
Yeah. We get a bit where George is driving like really intensely. I think he's just like speeding because
he knows
it's going to turn back.
And then it does. She shoots Shiv.
Yeah.
Talks to Nable's fine. And this time we go to Archie. Before she can do anything, Zhang finds her.
I think she goes into Zhang's place, and as she opens the door, Zhang's waiting with a gun.
Right.
So she does the same early bit kind of thing.
Right. And she's like, I'm looking for Janet.
Yeah. But but Zhang like puts her gun down and is like, I don't want to fight kind of thing.
Yeah, like let's talk.
Yeah. Which is kind of weird that she shot herself the first time.
I think because she was in a compromised position, she wouldn't be able to sit down and have a conversation with Archie.
Okay,
Whereas this time, because she got the upper hand, she can force Archie to sit down and talk to her. And she basically says that the Chinese made their own serum.
Yeah. So this is at this point I was like, fucking yes.
Yeah. And she's like, where's Janet? Where's Janet? And she's been passed to a handler. But the handler never showed up at a checkpoint.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Shiv killed her team in Hamburg.
Yes.
Zhang and Archie's like filling in the pieces. She's like, oh, Shiv.
And she's like, we've been tracking Lazarus for years.
Yeah, that's how they found Janet in the first place.
Yes. And they're like, we tracked your newest agent to Barcelona. And she's
and that's
like,
how we found Janet.
And she's like, what, George? And it's like, oh shit.
So then Archie realizes that George went to see Janet.
Because last episode, and maybe the episode before, we kept talking about how when it resets, all the material evidence goes. So there's no evidence that he ever did that unless it's in people's memories.
Yeah.
And we assumed that was within the Lazarus crew and the only person who knew was Shiv who'd been killed. No, there are
Chinese are involved.
There are other people too.
And then Zhang says to Archie, like, this is gonna keep happening, isn't it? And they're both kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good little bit. I think that might have been the halfway point.
Yeah,
maybe.
quite possibly.
Yeah.
We get again Sarah spotting George with the body.
Well, I think he tries to set it up this time because he's almost like like fiddling around with it.
You found me.
Yeah.
She runs off. George is like, I know where she's gonna be, so he drives around the corner.
But he's like driving, like I think maybe he'd set off earlier, or maybe the timings are a bit off.
Because he didn't stop and hesitate, being like, she's run off. This time he's like, right, I'm going to go straight into the car and just drive around. And he just absolutely wallops her with his car,
which is so funny because we've had this moment.
He set off a nuke to bring her back after she was hit by a lorry,
and then him being careless has caused the exact
just
same
not paying
thing.
attention. And
but it's so funny because we know that there's this prospect that it's very likely to reset,
and he knows,
so he's almost just like
he's not even that upset about it. He literally says, fuck's sake, Sarah, just look both ways for once.
I missed that.
And he picks her up and throws her in the car with Shiv, and he's got like a smashed windscreen. And he's just like, fucking idiots.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's talking about himself or Sarah or both.
A bit of both, to be perfectly honest.
And it's so funny.
Yeah, he dumps both the bodies, doesn't he?
He's like in the car crying, and it's like the morning.
Yeah.
And then he dumped Shiv.
We kind of get like quite a lot of repeats in this section.
So my notes are singularity. So I've now described this jump back as a singularity. Shoot Shiv. Try and tell me something, Shiv. He's trying to talk to Shiv. Yeah. Here's from Sarah. Dump Shiv. Singularity. Shiv. Sarah. Dump. Singularity. Shiv. Neighbor. It does this like another 6 times.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where he's sitting in a park. And he's just kind of dead behind the eyes, and he goes,
oh yeah,
man on a bike, and a man on a bike comes past. Buggy comes up, Hat Man, and
hat blows
it's
up.
kind of like that bit in Truman Show where he's in the car and he's like, look, it's repeated. Red car, man on a bike, George crying.
It like a Groundhog Day kind of thing as well, isn't it?
And it kind of suggests that like we haven't even seen all the loops. This may be like 100. If he knows the timings of this stuff so well,
because also that implies, unless that is like the first day, and maybe it still implies, it's a lot of times, but say it was that first day after the Sarah thing, and he goes and sits in the same park every time. Yeah. Unless it's something like that, he would have had to sit in the same place,
loads of times.
I'd written while I was watching it like 20 plus resets from what we see. Yeah. But it's like you say, it's probably much more because he's handling it very bad.
The fact that he's now just like dead behind the eyes, not even thinking, and he just going, man with bike, buggy, hat.
Yeah.
And like, I reckon it could easily be like 100 times, which
Yeah.
sucks for Shiv because he's living like a second.
Well, I thought they'd do a bit more of the like have a little bit of a conversation each time, but obviously he's been shot every time, so it's quite
and he
hard.
pretty much dies within a few seconds.
We find out a bit later. It's like his lung's been like punctured, and it's like a collapsed lung kind of situation. I don't think it. I thought he'd been shot in the heart, but I think it's on the other side of the chest.
Yeah,
because otherwise, you know, as we find out, there is potentially something that can be done for him.
Yeah, but then we get George and Wes sitting in her office. They're both just like, this is fucking shit.
Yeah.
And Wes says, we've got to start waking people up. Like,
so is she suggesting that they get world leaders?
Yeah, she's like, give the serum to world leaders.
Them, yeah.
Because like this is like literally last resort.
Yeah, and we don't ever find out. I mean, the serum coming into play is what the purpose of that scene is.
Yeah,
but we never find out whether that gets enacted. You know, whether whether any world leaders get involved.
Yeah, but she's kind of like, this is beyond us now.
Because it's kind of dumb. Can you imagine giving Trump a fucking thing?
But they'll choose who. They wouldn't pick like Trump. Would
yeah,
they?
I suppose it'd be more like an advisor or like a Secretary of State or something.
Or somebody really, really smart.
Yeah,
because they've got to a point where like there's nothing we can do.
No,
we've run out of options. We need advice,
like quantum physicists, like astrophysicists and stuff.
Give it to like Ant-Man.
Okay.
So he works in quantum mechanics.
Kind of. I mean, Scott Lang Ant-Man's just a thief, isn't he?
Hasn't he got like a master's degree?
Yes, maybe, but I don't know what it's in.
I think it's like quantum stuff.
Quantum stuff. Is that just because of the quantum realm?
I think that's why they wrote him to have quantum stuff as a master's degree.
Let's see while we're here. Scott Lang, MCU. Here we go. Early life, prison sentence, and divorce.
I mean, it's probably before that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to Google it.
He did like a burgling thing. That's how he got into thing. Oh, master's degree in electrical engineering.
Oh, okay.
Well, Hank Pym would know about the other stuff.
I just Googled what science does Scott Lang.
What science does Scott Lang?
Scott Lang. Scott Lang is a genius scientist in the fields of biochemistry and nuclear sciences, but that might be like comics.
Yeah. I mean, Scott
MCU,
Lang's always the thiefy one.
The thiefy one.
He's the robber. Yes.
Anyway, after George had this conversation for Wes, he gets back to his flat and Archie's there.
Yes, and this is where I stopped for dinner because
this is where it starts to get interesting.
I know, and this is where I stopped because I thought I can't eat food and make consistent notes.
Okay, what did you have?
I had chicken wraps.
Oh, was that today?
No.
Oh,
no, we were talking about that was our dinner yesterday. We were telling you earlier, yeah.
Okay. When did you watch this?
Yesterday.
Oh, so it was the same meal that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. When I told you earlier, that was our dinner yesterday, and that was when I watched this. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe you had chicken wraps twice.
No. Today we had like a veggie curry, chili.
Anyway, when George walks in, Archie's like, boy, did I underestimate you.
Yeah, she is quite visibly hurt by the betrayal.
And she's like, where's Shiv? I guess you know where Shiv is. And he just like pulls away a rug and there's a huge blood stain on his floor.
Yeah. And she's just like, I think she says, is that before or after the...
Well, she's like, I know you did it. And then he's like, the loop brings Shiv back with a bullet in him each time. And she's like, you better find a way to bring him back.
She says, we currently live in a world without consequences. You're going to bring them back and you're going to face them.
Yeah. And
which is quite a good little, I criticize the writing, but...
She's like, I trusted you and you betrayed me. He's like, I had to save her. And she's like, no, you didn't have to save her. You wanted
You
to.
wanted to save
and
her.
now look what you've done.
Because the thing is, as we saw in like episode 3 or 4, she had the whole thing with Brian Gleason, and she could have done what he did, but she didn't.
No,
and she let her partner die and remain dead. So she
has the moral high ground.
She does have the moral high ground, and she can put herself on this podium, which she doesn't say.
And he can't be like, oh, you don't know what it's like, because she'd be like, I do, and I'm smarter than you.
It's like, yeah. Although that doesn't come. That's more like, I like how they don't go into it. It's just like,
and it's not like it was a snap decision of his. He spent like 6 episodes doing this.
Yeah, it was basically the whole plot of this season.
But she basically says, like, there's a rival machine out there. Shiv may know something. And then just before she leaves, she's like, next loop, tell him I'm sorry I didn't believe him.
Yes. And then we loop, and he does hug Shiv this time as he falls to his knees.
Yeah, and he like whispers in his ear.
Does he whisper? Okay. Yeah. And then Shiv kind of does a recognizing thing.
I think he hears. And I think he's like, I reckon he said, Archie says sorry.
Because he kind of like dies more peacefully. He doesn't slam to the ground and gurgle. He kind of dies nicely.
Because George like catches him as well. But George,
he's at a hospital.
Oh yeah, he's talking to a doctor about a collapsed lung.
Yeah, he's got a photo of Shiv's body,
Shiv's chest, and he's like, "What's this?"
He's like, "How would I have prevented this?"
Yeah, because he's like, "I'm from the police." Like,
she's like, "Where were you from again?" He's like, "Murder squad."
Yeah, and she's a bit suspicious. Yeah, but she basically says, "There's probably nothing you could have done. Yeah, like, don't sweat it." Yeah, and he's like, "That's not the answer I wanted."
And then he gets back, and you think it's the same shot as when he got caught by the police.
Yeah.
And because she was a bit suspicious, it's kind of like, oh, she called the police. But no, it's Sarah waiting on the step instead of the policeman.
And George is like, I know you're seeing someone. It's fine. I know you want to marry him, but you're having doubts. And she's like, she's a bit confused as to how he knows all this. And he can't be fucked with Sarah right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, George, like, how are you? And he's like, I'm just really fucking alone. And then goes into and it's like, he is having a shit time of it.
Yes.
Because like every 3 weeks he's having to dump one of his like friends, clean it up, hear from his girlfriend that she's got an ex-girlfriend, and just having a shit time of it. And he's at breaking point. Yeah. He's past breaking point.
Yeah.
Obviously a lot of it is his own doing.
Yeah.
But it's still shit.
He goes into the flat and he didn't even bother to move shit this time. Yeah. Which I said to Amy as we were watching this, I was like, it gets to the point where you just put him in the cupboard for 3 weeks. I know it's a bit unpleasant.
I did think about that, but I was like, how long does it take a body to like rot and smell?
I mean, quite quickly, I think. But like, I don't know.
If he put him in like an ice bath,
put him on ice, in the bath, and just don't go in the bathroom or whatever. Yeah. You know, like I'm sure maybe it would arouse suspicion, but I guess the thing is he doesn't know if each one's going to be the last one, so he wants to do it cleanly each time.
But he is starting to. The fact the body's still there is starting to.
And then we get the.
They're at Lazarus.
Oh, that guy.
And one guy's just like, he's trying to do some research and he's just like, what's the fucking point? Yeah. And then just like storms off and everyone's kind of like, singularity.
Yeah. And this time, instead of being nice, George just goes out and just has a shout.
He literally pins Reggie up against the wall and just like, fucking leave me alone.
Yeah. He tries to dry out the note, doesn't he, as well?
Yeah.
And this bit's good when the next day he goes down and he's waiting for the lift and the neighbor comes up and he's like, hey, sorry, man, like for intruding. And he's like, no, it's fine, like whatever. And you can't see the neighbor's body.
But like George just kind of looks him up and down and it kind of zooms out.
I think he's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. And he's a paramedic. Yeah. I was like, that is fucking hilarious.
So the guy who lives literally opposite him on the hallway, who comes to his door every night shortly after the gunshot,
shot somebody,
is the medical expert that he needed the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is very convenient, but is also just very funny, especially that it took him this long to realize.
It's happened like 100 times. But also, how shit of a neighbor is George that like...
Yeah. Well, the guy says later on, he's like, I asked the landlords about the neighbors, like as if there's like maybe a newer neighbor than George or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And also George has been there for like 3 or so years.
Yeah.
So, but even so, it's a funny turn of events, and I think it solves what seemed like an unsolved. Well, it opens the door for a solution for what seemed like an unsolvable problem. And I thought it was really funny because last episode, I think I said something like, unless George develops some super medical skills, he's not going to be able to save Jim.
Yeah.
Like, well, he didn't have to.
He's lived like, well, if we guess it's been 100 loops, that may be overestimated.
Yeah.
That's like 300 weeks.
He could have taught himself
that's like
how
6
to do.
years.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he could have at least, because he's only focusing on one thing as well.
Yeah, if he did that. I think he's kind of multitasking, isn't he?
He's a bit lazy. But he goes to see this woman.
Yeah, she's some sort of expert in something like cloth.
Deciphering stuff.
Yeah,
and he's trying to get her, see if she can figure out what's written on the note.
Yeah.
She puts some liquid on it.
Yeah, she does a bit of
and then kind of says, I can read it'll, worth, and weight.
Yes.
And he's like, it'll be worth the weight?
Yeah, and she's like, the gaps match up.
Yeah, that could be that. And then there's something else at the bottom, which is symbols of some kind. And she's like, it could be like Japanese or Chinese or like characters from an Asian language, basically.
So she's maybe not an expert in languages then, but
is good at
cleaning stuff.
Cleaning
almost like
paper.
a crime scene.
Yeah.
Like a restorative kind of person, yeah.
George is then at Lazarus looking at like Chinese characters.
Yeah, and he's got this bloody note just there. This bloody note there.
Got a bloody note.
So he must have gone at night time when no one's at Lazarus, apparently.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people just given up.
Yeah. Well, he's gone on that same time of night where he took Sarah the time before.
Oh, yeah.
When there's just no one there, no guards.
But he
turn off the
translates
security cameras.
the Chinese writing in the bottom right to time machine.
Yes.
And then he sneaks down into like their lab.
Yes, some sort of like fridge
opens
area.
the fridge and takes like a test tube.
Yes. Because as we said, this is the time of night where no one's there. They turn off all the security cameras. It's just, it's free for all. Help yourself.
And he goes to see
Sarah at her flat.
And she's like, why don't you come to the cafe? And he's like, yeah, I know. Can I come in?
And then we flick back to Archie in China. She gets a buzz at her door this time.
Yeah, and it's Shang.
And she's like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. She has a similar experience to George. She talks about every morning after the loop, she looks out of her window and she's like mapped all of the people that go past.
She says that she started following people that she'd bumped into just to see what they did.
Yeah.
And there was one guy she'd followed who would hang himself at the end of every day. And it was really weird for her to see this guy every day, knowing that he's on his way to hang himself. And then she said hi once to him. Yeah. And followed him, and he didn't.
So she's got it's this weird kind of god complex that they kind of develop.
And Archie says, like, the smallest thing can make the biggest difference, which is kind of part of Lazarus's agenda.
Which kind of goes to show in a way that the agency that Zhang works for have kind of stumbled into this more. They haven't like learned the lessons that Lazarus have.
That are way behind Lazarus, because Lazarus has been doing this for like at least 50 years.
So basically it seems like they had the serum for years. So they've been the new agency, the Chinese one. They've had the serum so they can remember, but they haven't been able to ever control it, which is why they tried to do this thing. So I guess they haven't been messing with stuff in the same way that Lazarus did.
Yeah.
Archie tells a story about the neighbor, doesn't she? She says like, hear that guy playing guitar? Because someone's like playing guitar in the next room. She's like, a few loops back, I threw him out the window. She's like, I'm thinking about doing it again.
Yeah. And Zhang's like, what's so special about Janet? And then this is when Archie talks about how she's like super, super smart.
Yeah. And they say something like Janet needs to fix a mistake.
The Chinese government need her to fix something.
Yes, and and Zhang is like, I know where she is.
Yeah, and Archie's like, well, I'm gonna need help to go get her.
Yeah,
Let's do a buddy cop show.
Buddy cop, Zhang
Archie and Zhang. So we're back at George in Sarah's flat, explaining Lazarus.
Yes.
And he says, we've been living these 3 weeks again and again and again and again and again and again and again.
Yes.
And he's like, you can remember this too with this injection.
Yeah, he gets that. I mean, to be fair, it looks like quite a medical sci-fi looking syringe.
Yeah.
She's like, are you taking heroin?
Yeah. And he's like, this will help you remember what we lost.
Yeah.
And she's like, what did I lose? And she's like, we got married, we had a baby, like everything.
Yeah. And she's kind of, she's taking it kind of well, but it's also a very intense, kind of suspicious thing for him to suddenly be doing from her perspective.
And
anyway.
he basically leaves the needle syringe there.
Yeah.
And goes.
Yeah. Which is kind of, again, a really weird thing to do, because if your ex-partner who you hadn't seen for 9 months, because they haven't met on this loop, I don't think.
No.
Maybe they had a quick conversation.
Yeah, no, he just turned up because she was like, why weren't you at the calf?
Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, who you haven't seen for ages turned up with a syringe and was like, take this. You'd be like, are
Maybe
they trying to poison me or drug me? Or, you know, especially considering she's the one
engaged as well.
And she was the one who did the dumping. Like, if they haven't spoken, he could be insane. And he kind of is, to be honest.
He gets home though, and there's suddenly a gun pointed at him, and it's a Red Rob, and I was like, "Oh yeah!" I was like, immediately, I was like, "I'm gonna enjoy this scene."
He's like, "All right, bruv."
Yeah, and he's like, "What? World's gonna explode in half an hour." So, George is like, "World's gonna explode in half an hour. You don't need a gun. We can sit and talk because it doesn't fucking matter."
And Red Rob's Dennis is like, "Oh, I can't find Janet.
Where's Janet?" And George's like, "Fuck if I know."
Yeah.
She got taken by the Chinese. Archie's looking for her.
And then he's like, Shiv, and he just doesn't answer him, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he gives Red Rob a beer.
Yeah, he's like, beer, and he's like, go on then.
And Red Rob's like, it's a singularity, isn't it? And George's like, yeah, it's fucked.
Yeah, it's fucked. And then, he's like, this does not feel like a flat that has a woman living in it.
It's like, very bachelor pad.
Where's the resurrected girlfriend? She dumped me. And then he shows the blood on the floor.
Yeah, he's like, Shiv.
And he's like, interesting. Red Rob is probably the best character, actually.
Yeah. George's like, yeah, it's a silly thing to do.
Yeah, no, he's like, I shot him. Yeah, and then he's like, that was a silly thing to do. Because I love Red Rob. He's just so like cynical and sarcastic.
And like, he doesn't give a shit.
No, he's like how Shiv is like nihilistic, but he's got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Whereas Shiv is like completely humorless.
I think Red Rob finds this whole thing quite amusing because Lazarus have fucked up so badly.
They fucked up so badly. This is effectively what he wanted.
Yeah.
He just didn't want
to be
Janet,
stuck.
and God knows where his daughter is as well. No one's mentioned her the whole time.
But he shows Red Rob the note, and he kind of looks closely and notices something.
Yes, and as he is kind of about to say something, it resets.
Singularity. And then this time, there's a knock on the door, and George immediately grabs Reggie. I was like, "Someone's been shot in my flat. Come help!"
Yeah,
and Reggie
runs
of
and grabs his like medic bag.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Call 999," and then we get a cut to
Archie
and Zhang sneaking in. They've got silencers. They're
Janet's like at a computer under guard.
Yeah.
And she like hears something. Yeah. And Archie and Zhang are like killing guards left, right, and center.
Yeah. We go back to George's flat.
And Reggie's like, call 999. He's like, you have to save him now.
He's
and George
like,
is like holding a gun.
And he's got a gun, and he's obviously realised, oh, he shot him.
And Reggie's also like, I don't want him to shoot me.
Yeah. And this is when he's like, I asked the landlords what the neighbours were like.
Archie and Zhang continue.
Yeah. Yeah, George tries to speak to Shiv as he's being
and
saved.
he's like, "Where's Janet? Where's Janet?"
He's like, he needs space, like back off, kind of thing.
And Archie and Zhang then get to the room that Janet's in.
She's not there.
It's empty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because we see it cut right from one to the other.
Yeah, and Reggie clears the lung.
Yes, he puts like the tube thing in.
Yeah,
and, like,
we see like,
and Shiv seems to be like pretty fine now.
And then Shiv's like, "You shot me, you fucking dickhead." And he's like, Rebrov is the key.
Yes, and then we get a shot.
Yeah,
Rebrov's just strolling into Lazarus.
Just casually walked into Lazarus, hands up. And he's like,
he's talking about the code.
He's like, yeah,
remember we had that code situation.
Because Wes is like, why did you kill
Ryan?
Before, yeah. And he's like, me and Janet had certain code words that meant certain things. We had one really important code.
Yes. And it means in trouble, need you.
Yeah, and it'll be worth the wait, which is what was on the note that she wrote that then was in Shiv's pocket.
Yes. And he's like, that one was made up by Janet. And he's like, there's something about it that always stuck out to me. And I didn't realize what it was until now.
And he gives a photo
for his pocket. And it's almost like the Shiv thing. He's like, it's just...
He gives a photo to Wes and she looks at it.
Yeah.
And it's the picture that Janet took of him looking at his phone in 2012. And he's like, she's not here anymore.
Yes. They found a way.
Someone has broken through the checkpoint.
And she's in 2012. And we see her with an old brick phone texting it to then Rebrov.
Saying it'll be worth the wait.
And she's sitting with the other Janet.
And she's watching the 2012 Olympics on TV.
Yeah.
Just to reconfirm she's back in 2012.
And he says, I know exactly where she is. If you're going to find her, you'll need my help.
Yeah. I was like, oh,
like, this is a fucking great setup here. This is good stuff.
It's a shame there's only 5 minutes left of the episode. Sarah arrives at George's.
Yeah, I guess the door's open because of everything that was happening.
And Reggie's just like, there's more people here. And she's like, fucking hell, you can time travel.
And then George just smiles.
She remembers everything, but she doesn't know why.
No.
She's seen George in all these time loops.
No, well, she probably hasn't even had the whole bleed through thing yet.
Yeah.
She just knows.
But George then smiles at her.
He smiles and
it's the end of season 1. Fuck.
Season 2, baby.
Thank God this has been renewed for season 2, because imagine if it just ended on that.
Yeah, I mean, it could still not happen.
Yeah.
The fact that I watched it on Now TV means they got one extra viewer there. I know that you watched it via HBO Max.
Yeah.
So they might not count your views, but the fact that we're podcasting about it means that hopefully, you know what? I think we may well have been instrumental in that season 2.
I bloody hope so, because
imagine those interviews leading up to season 2 and they're like, yeah, we weren't really sure, but this one podcast just
what was it called? The Lazarus or something like that.
Yeah. The Papa Project.
The Papa Project. But yeah, I was a little bit pissed.
Yeah.
That it ended on a big cliffhanger.
Yeah, it was one of those things.
It was a good episode. I enjoyed it.
It was a really good episode, but I think because I could see it coming, I wasn't like, oh, for fuck's sake. But I was still like, oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's one of those that like, you have to renew us now.
Yeah. Oh, you just imagine if that hadn't been renewed though, and it was just that, and you're like, oh, because there's so many series like that where they had a good first season or a first couple of seasons and it's just like,
not picked up. Before we go into any more discussion and rating, last week when we were discussing the episode, there was 5 things that I mentioned that we wanted to find out in this series finale, and we said they may not all be resolved.
No, we were expecting at least 1 or 2 to roll over if they did a second season.
So I went back and wrote down those 5 things. So number 1 was
you're struggling to read your own notes there.
It was, what was Shiv trying to tell George before he was shot? / what was on the note.
Okay, so we found. I would say that's a tick.
Yeah, it all
That's a
worked away.
yes there.
It was Janet, which then led to us finding out that Janet's been sent back in time.
Yes. So do we think Shiv knew that she'd been sent back in time? Time machine was written on there.
Yeah, maybe he figured it out.
So maybe the Chinese government or Chinese agency had known since 2012 about Lazarus, which is why they sent them back to then. But, yeah.
Will George get away with it? I'd say no, but Archie knows now.
Archie knows. She said she's going to sort out. But Shiv is kind of like, I mean, he couldn't really do anything about it.
I think the question of would he get away with it is almost irrelevant now.
Because the stakes are so beyond that.
Yeah.
It'll be a case of, like, they're going to get Rebrov on side. So George is like second fiddle to Rebrov, really, isn't it?
Yeah. The third one was, how does Lazarus work? In terms of like the time machine, we didn't find that out. We didn't get close to finding that out. We got
pretty much the same thing. I think that'll be either end of season 2 leading to season 3, or they just won't address it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's important.
Are the Chinese up to something?
We
did get an answer to that. That was
they absolutely are.
Very definitely we found out about that. And then finally, what was that thing in the sky?
We found that out pretty much straight
away.
So
I was I ended the episode, I was like, we didn't find out more. Then when I went back in those questions, I was like, actually, we found out most of the stuff we wanted to find out.
It was just the fact that there was so many extra questions on top, I think.
Yeah, they answered in like Lost. They did a Lost thing where they answered a load of questions, but in doing so, gave us twice as many questions.
Yeah.
I think should we do an episode rating and then a whole season rating?
Yeah, can do. Yeah, I mean, just before we get into the ratings to kind of cap it off, just what I was talking about earlier with Sarah remembering stuff. So she will remember in time all of the loops.
I reckon she'll be folded into the team now.
But will that cause issues with her and George?
Maybe.
Do you think she'll think that he was being manipulative because he knew about certain things?
Yeah, she may also then just be told, she may be folded into Lazarus, told everything and realise the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how will it affect their relationship? Because from his perspective, it's like, oh great, now I've got a time-travelling girlfriend who loves me and all that.
This may get him in trouble with Lazarus as well.
It absolutely will, yeah. I mean, unless she isn't folded in and she's just his girlfriend who secretly remembers.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's a bit like Spider-Man revealing his secret identity. It kind of both alleviates certain issues, but also introduces a whole load more issues, doesn't it?
I think quite often when TV shows go from season 1 to season 2, there's like 6 months or a year later.
Yeah,
this is still going to be the same 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because they haven't fixed the singularity yet, and that will be season 2.
And it may well be. Yeah, I mean, maybe not for the full thing. No, because they're going to go back to 2012, surely.
Oh yeah,
pretty shortly after. But that could bring its own complications because there will be versions of them.
Do you reckon they'll do a whole don't let yourself be seen by yourself?
Well, the thing is, because they haven't
can create a paradox.
Actual time travel hasn't been addressed in this show.
No,
time looping has, but not time travel.
Yeah,
which is kind of an extra, slightly sillier element.
And we know that 2 people can exist at the same time because Janet texts Rebrov whilst sitting in a park with him.
So that's proof that. So they could I think.
They don't replace their own body.
No, as they do with the normal loops, where it's just the mind going back. So it is a kind of
a different type.
It is way more science fiction-y in some ways, but I mean, in terms of the flashbacks we've had before, I think the Archie one where she was in MI6 might have been 2012.
That's true.
So they may well, join up with that. Or if Shiv does die after this bit here, because he might not pull through.
They can go back and recruit.
They go back and get another Shiv involved. It kind of opens a lot of doors for things like that, which I'm all for. And the sillier it gets, fuck it really. To be honest,
I think it was a well-made series.
Yeah.
I think it mostly got pretty good reviews.
Yeah, from what we saw at the start, because it was all released at once in July, wasn't it?
I think it was June.
Maybe June, yeah.
But yeah, there was.
Yeah, the initial reviews were all very good anyway, which is part of the reason that we picked it up in the first place.
Yeah, so this episode, I'm kind of mixed about, because
me too.
If it wasn't the finale, I would have loved it.
Yes.
But it was the finale, so it kind of left a little bit of a bittersweet taste in my mouth.
Between two numbers.
Hopefully not the number 2.
Between 2 and 10. Well, the numbers I'm thinking of are between 2 and 10.
Okay.
I don't know if it was as good as the best episodes there.
No, I agree. Not as much happened. Most of the good stuff was pre-set up.
Yeah, there was a lot of it was a lot squished into one episode.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a 7.
I was also going to say a 7.
Because we gave 1 or 2 8s, and one of them was the episode before last that ended with everyone waking up after I think that was probably the best episode.
The Shiv episode was good as well.
Shiv episode was really good with the chase. I think those 2 were the 8s that we did.
I think there was one other 8 in there. Maybe the episode after the Shiv episode.
I think that was the one that we're talking about potentially.
Yeah, but yeah,
who knows?
I also am doing a 7.
Yeah, we never found out if the Baldies were the guys, did we?
Oh yeah,
I don't know if they were then.
I guess they're not that important.
Unless they just reused the same actors.
It might just be, Shiv killed him, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We may find out actually next season when we start hearing Shiv's side of things about what's happening.
Yeah,
what's been
we might
happening
get a little thing, get Alexi from Stranger Things.
Because he basically disappeared for months.
Yeah.
Killed some people in Hamburg.
I think
that's
it was
all we know.
Pretty much so. And we don't know why he made himself visible on the CCTV. I guess it was to draw attention to that shooting.
Yeah,
but it's not super clear.
There's a lot that I think Shiv will tell us at the start of season 2.
But I think a 7 is pretty good for it. And then for the season as a whole,
like if we did it as an average of episodes, I think it'd probably be like if we gave a few 8s, a few 7s, and then like a 6 and a 5, so it'd probably be like a.
It'd be a 7. It would be a 7.
But
I imagine.
I don't think judge it average out. I want to give it an 8.
I think I was going to go for an 8 as well, because it is, as I said earlier, definitely the best ongoing thing that we've watched.
Yeah,
and
it is
arguably one of the best things that we've watched.
Yeah,
this year,
I watched this on Sunday just because I genuinely wanted to watch the finale and see what happens. It wasn't like if I don't know, for whatever reason, the podcast stopped a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I still would have watched the rest of these episodes.
Me too, definitely. Yeah, and that says a lot for it, really, doesn't it? We're not obliged to watch it. We'd want to watch it.
Yeah, whereas, like, if the podcast ended tomorrow, I'd probably never watch Zeta, White Rabbit, or Blue Earth ever again.
Yeah.
But I would watch this, and I'm looking forward to season 2 next year.
Me too, yeah.
We may get some bits come up in Project News over the next year about them filming and stuff.
At the moment, it just says 2023 when I've looked it up.
Yeah, it was renewed on the 4th of August, so quite a while ago.
I wonder how long it takes them to film, because
it's a fairly low budget TV show.
I think, 5-6 months maybe is probably
not even that, but possibly.
I'm just thinking it might be worth.
They may have already started or started writing.
Hopefully, they would have written some stuff. I might start following some cast members on Instagram and stuff.
They might have a Lazarus Project Twitter account and stuff.
They haven't got an Instagram because I tag stuff.
Right,
but
we can start looking into that. But I think that brings us to the end of our journey on the Lazarus Project.
It does, what a journey.
I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
An unexpected journey.
The fact that we have just gone through this entire season has been quite fun. Obviously,
really good.
It was all kind of random stuff we'd watch each week up until this, and it's really kind of been the summer of Lazarus for the podcast. The Lazzy Proj.
We've got Project October, and then we have got Free Reign after that.
Yeah,
November
God,
is
that's
going to be
weird,
a
isn't
wild November.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that means it's now time for Personal Projects.
This looks kind of personal.
Projects.
So, Samuel, what have you been watching, reading? Fuck it. What have you been watching?
I went to see the A24 murder mystery, Bodies.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I think you told me about that.
Maybe, yeah. No, I only saw it on Sunday, so
okay,
I don't think we had
maybe
a
not.
chance to talk about it yet.
Oh, no, I know because Amy had locked herself out the flat and couldn't get you because you were in the cinema.
I was in the cinema,
and
yes.
She lonely walked around.
Yes.
On her own.
She went and charged her phone, had a coffee. It was only an hour and a half film, so she wasn't there for long, but it was long enough.
She made it into quite a big deal.
It was really good fun. It's kind of like a dark comedy. I think it's categorized as a horror, but it's more of like a funny thriller murder mystery thing. It's all these like 20 somethings, they're all really rich, and they're having a hurricane party at one of their parents' like mansion.
Right.
So there's like 7 of them, some couples. They all turn up. They're having a bit of a kind of rager, kind of a drug-fueled party. And there's a couple of people who are like new to the group, and they play this game called Bodies, which is a bit like a murder in the dark, thing where turn off all the lights, have to someone's
sort of trailer for this,
someone's
actually.
designated, they have to tap someone. When the body's discovered, you kind of have that, the werewolf thing where you're like, who did it? You will vote them out kind of thing. And then a real body turns up and all their kind of grievances and stuff.
Among Us.
It's very much that kind of thing, but it's really well acted. The cast are really funny, and some of them are just kind of unbearable people in a very funny way. I would really recommend it.
Nice.
I don't think it's out on streaming or anything yet because it literally came out like last week. But I would not necessarily a cinema must see, but when it's out on more accessible means, I would say, I
haven't
give
been
it a
to
watch.
the cinema in ages, but Everything Everywhere All at Once and Tenet are both on Prime now, so I think I might watch them at some point.
I would definitely recommend Everything Everywhere. You saw Tenet before.
I've seen it twice now, and I still really like it.
Yeah.
What about yourself? Bodies.
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 I also thought it'd be a good game to play at some point in real life, hopefully without the real murder. The only issue is that you need quite a large space for people to be able to explore and stuff.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to rent their mansion out to us for a project,
we'll talk about it in Personal Projects, so you can get that free exposure.
Yes, but yeah, what about yourself?
So over Sunday and Monday, I watched the entire extended trilogy of Lord of the Rings.
You know what? The funny thing about that is when I was looking up cinema times for Bodies, the Duke of York's cinema, the Picture House cinema, they did all 3 Lord of the Rings on Sunday on 45mm film. 45mm?
Extended or...
I think it was just the theatrical releases, but they had half an hour breaks in between each one.
Yeah.
35mm film. I don't know where I came up with that.
It is 12 hours.
Yes.
So I started watching on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I wasn't too fussed about stopping at the end of each film. So I can't remember the last time I just watched one of those films. You kind of have to set a day aside because every time I watch Fellowship, I have to then watch Two Towers and Return of the King.
I haven't watched them for a while.
I think I watched them every other year or something.
Yeah.
But I started watching Fellowship on Sunday, got about an hour into Two Towers, went to bed, watched a bit in the morning, paused to watch the Queen's funeral, finished Two Towers, watched Return of the King. I actually paused halfway through Return of the King to watch Ring of Power with Christina.
How was that? A bit of a shocking.
Oh, it's fine. I've seen Lord of the Rings so many times that you can kind of zone in and out.
In and
I was
out,
working on my Godzilla whilst I was watching it.
Nice.
Just making some steady progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lord of the Rings is good.
Flash news.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh fuck yeah.
Amy's been asking if we can watch them through at some point, so I think suggesting that we watch them, asking for permission.
Yeah, there's always extra bits. You're like, oh, that's good. And because I remember last time I watched it, I decided to count how many like fake out deaths there were, and it came to like 12 across 3 films.
Quite a lot.
This time I noticed about how in the first film and a half, Sam just seems completely clueless about the bigger picture that's going on.
Yeah,
he's just all like, "Oh, Mr. Frodo, I'm looking after Mr. Frodo. We're gonna drop this off and get some chicken and go back." And it's like, there's a bit more going on here.
Yeah,
Sam.
I remember. Yeah, he kind of. Yeah, it is in the second one, isn't it? There's a point where he kind of realizes that maybe they're not going home.
Yeah,
his kind of options.
I think it's not until Return of the King when he's like, "There's not going to be a return trip," and it's like, "Oh, now you realize."
Yeah.
But it's still, I did find myself. I prefer the other stuff than the Frodo and Sam story.
Right. Okay.
I just find it a bit more compelling. And
it does. It doesn't necessarily drag's probably the wrong word, but there's a bit of treading water in that, in that plot.
I also kind of forgot when, in one of the many endings of Return of the King, when Frodo sees Gandalf, I kind of forgot that he thought he was dead still.
Yes.
I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's not communicated because they just don't see each other for years. It's supposed to be.
And there's the whole funny thing about how Frodo and Legolas never have a conversation.
Yeah.
And at the end, Frodo forgets Legolas's name, maybe. When he wakes up, he's like, "Gandalf, Gimli." Legolas walks in, he smiles. And then literally a second later, "Aragorn."
Yeah.
Which is quite funny. And also, in the another thing, I was like, let's look at that. Across the 12 hours, the Fellowship are together for 45 minutes.
Oh, really? Yeah, because it's like more than halfway through the first film, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's when Elrond says, "We'll call them the Fellowship of the Ring."
Yeah.
And then towards the end of that film is when Gandalf dies.
Yes.
And that's the Fellowship broken up. And it's like, oh, okay, that's funny. But yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah.
One bit of IMDb trivia that I thought was funny was that Peter Jackson really, really didn't get on with Harvey Weinstein and Bob Weinstein.
Oh, really? Okay.
To the point where in the credits, when it comes up people's names, it shows their characters.
Yeah.
When it comes up Harvey Weinstein and Bob Weinstein as producers, it's got a drawing of a man fighting 2 trolls.
Okay.
I was like, that was good. I was like, oh, it's a shame that Harvey Weinstein was involved in this trilogy, but
yes,
at least Peter Jackson's like, yeah, he's a fucking dickhead.
He had his mitts on lots of productions, didn't he? So yeah.
But yeah, newsflash, Lord of the Rings is good.
Yeah, hot takes all round. Can't get away from them in this podcast. We've got 3 ongoing series to talk about. Where would you like to start?
Should we go straight into Rings of Power? Because
let's do it. Yeah.
So we're 4 episodes in now.
Yeah. This one doesn't start with an A, so they've broken that thing. It's The Great Wave, so it's AAAT. Sort of Star Wars.
I'm still enjoying it. Yeah. Like, I kind of got to the end of the episode and I was like, I enjoyed that, but then I was like, oh, I wish more was happening.
We kind of expected last time we talked about it for this to be the one that kicks things off, and I don't feel like it was.
No, I am still enjoying it though. Me and Christina, after, played a little game with ourselves of how many characters can we name?
Oh yeah, I've only got Galadriel written down, and Adar, who is the character that we made.
We didn't. So we got Galadriel, Elrond, Isildur, Durin.
Yes.
And then we looked at the episode descriptions and kind of figured out some other stuff.
Halbrand is the king,
Arondir is the elf who was captured by the orcs.
Yes.
And then you've got loads of
I don't know what the hobbits are called.
Nori and Poppy,
which is the female Sam and Frodo.
Yeah, me and Christina, it was quite funny reading up like episode discussions on Reddit.
Yeah,
and like there's some spoilery stuff in there, but I don't know what any of it
upcoming
means.
Stuff that people...
Yeah, or like, I wonder if this is this or this.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
I don't know who that is.
But I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, there's so we get the crystal ball, which is the same type of thing that we see in...
Maybe not the
Return
same
of the
one,
King.
but the same sort of thing.
And there's that the big wave is going to destroy that island.
Numenor, yeah.
And that's something that they think was going to happen if the elf got away, and that was their whole motive.
And we know that Numenor doesn't exist by the time of Lord of the Rings.
Right, so that may well happen. Galadriel kind of leaves, but then comes back secretly and is like, let's go to war kind of thing. So she's kind of won her little bit there for the time being.
I enjoyed that. Like I said, I'm enjoying the story.
Yeah.
I like there's lots of secret stuff and you're like, are they turned by Sauron? The bit where Elrond's like the dwarves are doing something secret and it's just like, no, they're just fucking dwarves like that. They find a really nice rock and they're like, we're gonna be all secretive because we're dwarves.
And it was Mithril, which I don't think we called on episode, but I had seen people speculating that shiny thing was Mithril. And maybe that bit he gives Elrond, is that gonna become that necklace that Thingy wears? That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
It's the Adar guy, who is the same actor as, is he Cold Hands in...
Yeah, Benjen Stark.
So I got confused and thought he was the guy from Mighty Boosh. It's not him.
No.
He is the most obviously likely this is Sauron guy, right?
Yeah, but
I still think he's probably like a second in command.
So I've seen a couple of interesting things about him.
Because he's an elf, right?
Yeah. One thing is that apparently, I don't know if it's confirmed or just what is suggested, that orcs are like corrupted elves.
I think in the first... Well, you watched the films recently, but I think they talk... I always thought when I was younger that that humans corrupted were orcs and elves corrupted were goblins, and I don't know why that is. I don't think that's right.
No, I think orcs originally were elves, and then some of them got changed, and then they developed the whole race. Right. And I saw a theory that this Adar guy could be the first orc, or the guy that created the orcs.
Right, because they call him father, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And because he's an elf, he could have been around for ages. So he could either be the first orc or create the orcs. I thought that would be pretty fun.
It would make sense, because he is definitely the biggest, like, is he secretly Sauron guy?
I think he's going to be the big bad for this season.
Yes, I think that's right. And so we see... when he gives is it Arondir? Arondir, he kind of has a bit of a kind of mind game sway over him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because he kind of subdues him and sends him off to send this message. And it's like you say, has he been kind of secretly turned?
Yeah.
I guess that's going to be a bit of a conflict coming up.
I saw another thing of like predictions of how this is going to progress at all. Further on as a theory, and I'm well on board with this theory.
Okay, yeah.
Because one thing that kind of got me from the start was the whole thing with Sauron and the rings is that he gave the rings to men, dwarves, elves, and then created one for himself.
Yeah.
And I was always like, why the fuck are these people accepting rings from this person that they're hunting down as evil?
Yeah.
This could be that Sauron's corrupted this guy, maybe without him realizing, to become a big bad. He does loads of bad stuff, starts winning this war against everyone else, and Sauron comes in and be like, hey, I can help you beat this guy with these secret weapons.
So he is like a puppet of Sauron, basically.
I think I saw someone describe it as him doing a Palpatine.
Right, okay.
And putting two sides. So then they, out of desperation, accept his gifts. And then he creates the One Ring
because it's quite explicit in that intro to the Fellowship of the Ring that Sauron gave the rings to them.
Yeah,
so it's not
and
like
then created one to rule them all.
It's not like he could have tricked, Celebrimbor, the Forge guy, to give them out to people.
Yeah.
It's got to be quite explicit that Sauron's giving them. And the whole conflict there will be, Galadriel will be like, no, he's evil, don't take them.
But Galadriel literally has a ring. In Lord of the Rings, she's still wearing the ring.
Yes, yeah.
But I was like, that would make sense. That'd be a good way of making them turn to Sauron.
Yeah.
So that could, I mean, that may play out across the 5 seasons.
Could well, yeah. I think that makes the most sense so far. I am intrigued, but as you say, I did find the episode a little bit forgettable. I haven't really thought about it since, but that may be because I watched it on Friday quite late.
See, I watched it yesterday, but I have found, even though at the time I was a bit thought it was a bit. Me and Christina then like spent an hour talking about it. I went into work today and was talking to a couple of people about it for a while.
Okay.
And I was like, actually, there's still plenty to talk about.
I guess I just haven't had any conversations about it. Maybe that's why.
And as I've kind of said in previous weeks, I'm kind of just enjoying not knowing what's going on and going with it.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not as invested in like the lore and stuff, so I don't mind if they're changing things up.
Casual rides, and
I just enjoy it for what's happening. And I'm like, this is good.
Nice.
So next thing,
we break it up with Mrs. Hulk.
With Mrs. Hulk, episode 5.
That's right. Yeah.
And this was all about
Titania. And trademark law.
It
wasn't a great episode.
It wasn't.
The court case stuff was not very compelling.
I felt fundamentally like this is dumb because, like, obviously you can't just use somebody else's name.
No, and obviously she's gonna get it back because it's called She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Although they do the funny thing with the title where they've changed the intro a couple of times, and I think this time it said She-Hulk by Titania when it came up at the start. So.
I know last week we were kind of saying, oh, you know, it's quite fun to just sit back and have something chilled and good on.
And now you're like, I want something to be going through this.
Yeah, I'm kind of just a bit like,
I
don't really care too much.
No. There was a couple of bits that kind of were more interesting. I think it was fun to have the Tinder dates come back.
Yeah.
Although it's kind of like, she won because all these men helped her. It kind of didn't fully gel with the whole thing. We have the costume maker who is called Luke something, who's kind of just like Edna mode. I saw people being like, there's an Edna mode variant in the MCU.
So there's obviously the bit at the end of the episode.
Bit at the end, which we could talk about in a sec. They come to the friend of hers sets her up with this costume maker.
Yeah.
In an attempt to make her some suits because she's been wearing the same oversized grey suit the whole time.
Yeah.
And as well as that,
do you reckon she wears an oversized bra?
I think she probably wears one of the biggest bras that she can find. Probably a sports bra, so there's a bit of stretch in it, I imagine. But yeah, and he's like, as they do in all these things, I'm pretty sure this is exactly what happens in Incredibles. He's like, oh, I've made you this other one just in case you need it.
Yeah.
And I've seen, I think it's maybe in one of the trailers or something, there is some sort of spandexy purple white thing that she will wear at some point.
Yeah.
So I assume that'll come out maybe in the next episode. Hopefully they don't wait until the last episode to do a reveal. We feel like we're kind of past that.
How many have we got left?
That was 5. We've got 4 more left. We're on 9. There was some cute stuff with the people she works with. There's the Avengers was like, that's quite funny.
Yeah.
The in the ending credits they do like the court case sketch stuff.
Yes.
There's a bit where he's showing off all his sneakers that he collects, and they've got like there's a Deadpool one, there's like a thing, there's Doctor Doom. So there's like everybody in that, which is just it's an Easter egg thing, but it's you know it's kind of. In a previous episode with Abomination, apparently you see him getting on a bus and leaving his 7 soulmates. So I don't know if he's just left them already. I haven't actually.
I always just took that as just like concept art.
Yeah, but some of it is like an extra little bit that we didn't see. Like with Madison, there's one. I think I sent you the picture where she's in like a hell dimension with a goat.
Yeah,
it's kind of illustrating that little bit. But yeah, so we get a box at the end that had its lid taken off, and it's a costume that's been waiting, and it's the reveal of something that we've not spoken about. We've unknowingly given each other looks.
When that came up, I kind of was like, I kind of like pulled a face, and Christina was like, "Is that someone we know?" Yeah. And I was like, "Yes." And
because the color is different, I think it throws you off.
And she was like, is it Daredevil?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. And she
Yes.
was like, I knew that because you only ever make that sound and pull that face when it's Daredevil stuff. She was like, I don't think you realize this, but Daredevil's so obviously your favorite character. Because obviously in Spider-Man, like, I had a similar reaction. And she was like, yeah, you always get super excited about anything to do with Daredevil. And I was like, I do really like Daredevil.
I saw an interview with so it's the yellow costume.
Yeah,
and
I guess as well, he's not going to have the costume maker that he had in the Netflix series.
That's something I've seen people slightly, that's
like
the
that
one
guy.
thing they've had to pick on. Maybe he's in LA for a bit because this is all set on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And he needed a different costume, like, hey ho, whatever it is. Maybe I assume it's not his first costume, whatever. There was an interview with Charlie Cox. I think it was at D23 or something. And he was talking about when he realized he was going to wear the yellow costume, and he was like, he clearly loves playing this character so much. He was talking about how his reaction to stuff is so intrinsically tied to what he knows the fan reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
And he went to a costume fitting and he saw a sketch of it on the wall, and then they brought it out on a rail, and he was just like, he had this double reaction of,
I saw a thing. I think it might have been the same interview as someone like made a TikTok site being like, oh yes, Charlie Cox is playing Daredevil again. You can tell because he's got his Deadeye 1,000-yard stare back that he couldn't get rid of for years.
I saw a thing recently that Ben Affleck wore opaque contact lenses, so he cheated when he played Daredevil because he couldn't see. Which is just the same thing Jared Leto did on Blade Runner. And it's just like, that's not acting.
It's like the stories of Charlie Cox audition to do Solo. And he couldn't stop doing the 1,000-yard stare because he'd just been doing Daredevil. One other thing I enjoyed from She-Hulk was when she was talking to his boss and she was talking about like secret identities. And she was like, like Thor and Doctor Strange don't have to trademark their names. And he's like, you pick two people who use their real names.
I mean, there's not that many secret identities in the MCU, is there?
No. Spider-Man.
Pretty much Spider-Man. And it's been quite refreshing, but so I assume that we're getting Daredevil next episodes.
Or maybe it's just a tease and he'll be in the episode after.
Maybe it would be nice because a lot of people.
I hope he's introduced as a lawyer first in like a court case. It seems like she's in court so much it just makes sense.
I do think I saw an interview and it was a bit of a cynical thing that was before She-Hulk came out, and it was one of the writers being like, we really wanted to do, like, when it was posted I took it with a grain of salt, but they were like, we really wanted to do exciting court case scenes. And then we realized that none of us had any experience writing legal dramas. It's like, I can see that. There is courtroom stuff, but it's not good courtroom stuff.
We mentioned before about, like, last week about how Addison was just a witness out of nowhere, and like, that's not how that works. No. And then even this week about the whole suing for her name, it's like, that would be a straightforward case.
I've got to say that although the stuff in the Netflix series was better, it was never my favorite parts, the courtroom stuff. But it was more the weight, and it took. Yeah,
and I feel like with
they threaded throughout multiple episodes.
With the Netflix stuff, they spent more time focusing on the investigation, putting the case together, rather than the actual in court stuff. There wasn't too much court scenes. There was lots of building the cases, doing research, setting the case up,
and
but there wasn't
a couple of bits like to top it off,
and it's mainly just,
or something dramatic would happen within even with their relationship.
But a lot of it is just like Matt Murdock doing a speech that we'd sit and prepare, and then the judge being like, you win.
But we don't even get that in this. It's like, how am I going to win this case? Don't worry, this thing will happen and you win the case. Thanks, guys.
Me and Christina did say, like, we were like, Jennifer Walters doesn't seem like a very good lawyer despite her success. And we were like, no. I don't think that's because of the character. I think that's because the writers aren't very good lawyers.
I think that's, and I really, so Daredevil was teased in the end of one of the trailers, and I stopped it and went, I don't want to see this. And then they released images of more of it, and I'd seen that and I'd gone, fuck's sake, kind of thing. And there was people talking about it online, and this same head writer was like, we got to do all sorts with Daredevil, things that hadn't been done before. We can see a lighter side to the character, and everyone's going, fuck, they're going to ruin Daredevil. And I don't think they will. But I'm a little bit apprehensive about where they're going to go with it based on like this episode. I think they'll make him do something funny, definitely, because it's a comedy show.
It's one of the things as well that Kevin Feige will step in and make sure they do Devil properly, because they're doing the Daredevil show like next year or the year after, and that's like 18 episodes.
And they've said like he's going to be an Echo as well, and they've said like he's going to be kind of the flagship like street level character going forward, which is what he should. And he was in the Netflix shows, but they didn't ever have the street level in the
to MCU.
I'm really excited if he pops up next episode, which is tomorrow as of recording.
Do you think Jennifer Walters will pop up in the Daredevil series?
I would be very interested to see when she'll turn up next. I think we'll probably next see her defending someone as a lawyer.
Yeah,
probably as She-Hulk
works in a Daredevil series.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, or she'll definitely get a reference like, oh, that lawyer back on the West Coast, the big green one that I'm friends with.
Yeah. Although they probably don't have to be as beat around the bush as they were in the Netflix series. Oh, the big green guy.
Yeah, that's where I got that. I'm thinking in terms of funny jokes, obvious jokes they could do with Daredevil. I do wonder if the obvious joke of him having a slightly garish yellow costume and the fact he's blind might come into it. She might be like, that's why you picked that ugly costume or whatever, you know.
He'd be like, what, does it not look good?
Yeah, he's like, I put all my faith in Luke.
Yeah. But a few more episodes left.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will come back to it.
Well, we will.
Yeah.
Although, actually, we discussed how the Project October stuff will work. We'll figure that out as we go.
Yeah, because we've also got a new Star Wars series that has just started as well.
Andor dropped today as of recording. First 3 episodes, they're 40-something minutes each, so it's a fair bit to get through. But we've got the weekend ahead of us. So.
Yeah. Maybe what I spend my weekend doing, I'll watch She-Hulk, Rings of Power, Andor. Actually, Christine was very excited that the new season of Survivor starts this week.
Right.
Survivor's shit, so I won't be watching
so
that.
You've got something to watch.
So I did say, Joe, what, it's because we watched all this stuff together.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not too much additional stuff because Christina won't watch Andor, so I can watch that like when she's not at home and stuff. Yeah. Which is a bit of a relief.
Phew. So Dragon House.
Episode 5. Yeah. More stuff happens. Stuff doesn't stop happening in Dragon House.
All over the place with this one here. So we finished last episode. Rhaenyra was betrothed to Laenor.
Yep.
And we get quite a lot of stuff with that in this episode.
Yeah, it's mostly centered around that. I love their little conversation when they were like, so they turn up at Driftmark.
Yes.
And Corlys Velarion's fucking tough negotiator.
But he's just like, he's also like, I'm not going to come meet you. I've just turned up from my own travels.
Yeah.
The king has to go and like grovel, basically, is what they see it as.
But I liked Rhaenyra and Laenor's conversation where she's just like, look, I've got a toy boy, you're gay, let's do our duty and do our own thing. Yeah. And he's like, fuck, yeah, that works for me.
Like, fair enough. He goes and tells his boyfriend, Joffrey.
Yeah. I also thought during that bit, I was like, Corlys and Rhaenyra are like the best couple in this show. Yeah. Because like, they genuinely love each other. They're an actual team who want to work together and do stuff together. All the other fucking relationships are a bit messy.
Yes, they are.
Particularly Daemon and his late wife.
His late great wife, who is a very short-lived character.
Do you know what? She was a fun character.
She was fun,
She was in it for 2 minutes, but I was like, damn, she was good.
He turns up in a very dramatic cloak.
Yeah.
A hooded cloak.
Is a bit silly, but also that's so Daemon, isn't it?
And then she's like, I knew you couldn't finish it. And then he comes back with a fucking rock. Like, her skull was crushed in a riding accident.
Yeah. She's such an excellent rider.
I liked how it was her cousin just comes up and just accuses him in the middle of the feast. Yeah.
The feast, lots happened.
There was a lot happening. I liked we'll skip around through, but the kind of climax of it where there's that crowd surge and it's very much we don't know what's going on. I think we might find out certain bits as we
but even before that was eventful because they obviously Damon just turns up like he does.
Damon turns up.
And he didn't even do anything wrong this time. No. He had a bit of an argument with the Royce guy being like, oh yeah, I may have killed your cousin. Also, I'm going to steal her inheritance.
I'll see you next week.
And Alicent's late arrival.
I'm wearing the green, which is indicating going to war, is it?
Which was also a bit of a nod to book readers.
Right, okay, yeah.
But yeah, her entrance was great during Viserys' speech.
And he just completely, because we saw right before, he'd been almost looked like he was going to die the night before, practically.
Yeah.
The fact that he's pulled himself together, he's delivering this quite good speech, and then she just fucks up his whole thing.
Yeah.
He has to really regather himself.
And just Damon was the only person who didn't stand up for her. He's just sitting on the end of the table like.
And he hasn't even got like a place set for him because they just didn't expect him to show up. Which is very funny.
And then we got
Kristen confessing to Alicent. She was not even anywhere near. He's just man of duty.
Kristen Cole is so funny because he's such a fucking idiot.
And before that, he'd been like, let's run away. Just give up this lovely life you've got.
Yeah, and she's like, who the fuck do you think I am?
But it's also all just to make himself feel better about it. Yeah, it's not even really for the right reasons.
It's whole like, I don't think he actually really cares about her much.
No.
He did it for duty and now he's just trying to maintain his honor.
Yes.
So wants to run away. And she said no. Now he's just like, what do I do?
And then we hear Alicent finds out about the tea from the Clubfoot guy.
Yeah.
So she's like, shit, my best mate, who we just reconciled, was lying through her teeth to me.
Yeah.
That guy is the little finger of this series, 100%.
Yeah. So this episode was the strong family episode.
Right.
So you may not notice the connections, but the Hand of the King is Lionel Strong,
right?
The new Hand of the King, who seems like a pretty good guy.
He seems genuine, but from what we've seen,
his oldest son is Harwin Strong,
and he's the guy who you pointed out was the guy who she ran into that night,
and he was also the guy who stormed into the fight and broke everyone.
He just gives him a nod and he's like, fucking goes in.
His nickname is Break Bones.
Right, yes.
And then his other son is Loris Strong, who's the
I wouldn't
guy.
say the ages 100% work with those two. They kind of look more like brothers, Harwin and the Hand of the King.
Lionel, yeah.
But, yeah, you know.
But, yeah, those three all played a big part in this episode.
They did, yeah. I mean, so I was listening back to, I think, our last episode, and you mentioned Harwin Strong.
Yeah.
And I'd seen a couple of videos of him popping up, and I was like, okay, yeah. To the kind of casual viewer, he's this guy that's been around. But the fact that you mentioned it, I'm like, I'm keeping an eye on this guy.
Yeah. Because I think casual viewers that don't then discuss it would probably not even notice who he was. Yeah, I think the three of them all kind of. I like how like they've all kind of doing their own things in their own ways, but still seem really close.
Yes,
like you see Harwin and Loris sitting together at the feast when Alicent comes in, and they're like, "Oh, look at this!" And despite about being completely different types of people, they're clearly quite close.
Yes, maybe the most functional family.
Yeah.
And the younger one who was the sneaky boy,
Loris.
He's he's laid a lot of doubts in Alicent's mind.
Very Littlefinger.
Very Littlefinger. I like that. I actually saw an article a couple of weeks ago saying, when he was at the hunt and he was listening to the ladies chat.
Yeah.
They were like, this guy is the Littlefinger, keep an eye on him kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, no, he really is.
Yeah.
And we get
big fight.
Big fight, Kristen. Well,
it starts with Damon and Rhaenyra
being
way too close,
practically kissing on the dance floor.
And Viserys is just like, "Are you fucking like staring at them?"
And everyone's because it's her fucking wedding. I mean, we see Laenor and Joffrey are being a little bit touchy, but in a much more like
subtle
we
way.
Can't be, you know. And these two
and Joffrey goes over and says to Kristen, "Look, I know you're banging the princess.
Yes,
let's keep this as our little secret."
And so Kristen's like, "Shit, more people than I thought know." And he's kind of waving it in his face, blackmailing him a little bit.
But then this fight breaks. We see Damon and Rhaenyra.
Yes.
Fight breaks out. We don't know what's going on.
We don't know what happened.
Rhaenyra and Laenor both get knocked to the side.
Yes. And Damon disappears.
Damon just kind of walks out. At first I was like, oh, fuck's sake, Damon.
I thought, because I think they're worried, Viserys and stuff are slightly worried that maybe he's taken Rhaenyra away.
Yeah.
Because she's teasing him going, your wife's dead. You wanted to take me away.
Yeah.
And take me.
She's being very flirty.
Yeah. And, but almost in a like, you can't do this way, kind of like, you know, pushing him to his limit.
And then Harwin goes in, forces everyone out, grabs Rhaenyra over his shoulder and just walks out.
So, and then Kristen just beats Joffrey to death.
Literally.
Half his face off.
That one shot with his head aside where half his face is just like
he's got
mush.
He's got his night gloves on, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So he's just like brass knuckles. And and then Laenor sees that, very upset. And then I think they rushed the marriage.
Yeah,
because
they originally say it's going to be a
7
7-day tourney, and then they're going to get married at the end.
And we can see he's still got the bloody nose from being knocked
knocked down. And there's still blood on the floor, and it's a very small wedding.
All the feast is still on the table, so they just rushed it, and he's like sobbing basically throughout. And then Viserys potentially drops dead at the end of the ceremony.
But so the
fight,
Kristen killing Lionel.
Yes.
No, not Lionel.
Oh, and
Joffrey.
then he goes off and almost kills himself, and Alicent stops him.
So
they're now allied. The two people.
Alicent now has two things over.
And the
Kristen.
two people who have been betrayed most personally by Rhaenyra are now allied together.
Yeah.
And Alicent has an express interest to not let Rhaenyra on the throne because her children will be executed potentially. It's
even though Rhaenyra's never said that, but she's
being
fed lies and stuff.
It's
so there's two interesting things from a book perspective on this. One is it's mentioned that Kristen was always super loyal to Rhaenyra and then became loyal to Alicent, and it's kind of never explained why.
Right.
And a lot of people was like, that seems a bit weird that he was like super loyal and then like was loyal to somebody else. But across this episode, you can see how that's developed, where he's been turned away by Rhaenyra.
He's spared any sentencing from his confession. And she's like, yeah, I'll just keep it, basically.
And then Alicent knows that he slept with Rhaenyra and then basically saves his life at the end. And you're like, Joe, it makes sense that he switched allegiance from Rhaenyra to Alicent.
Yeah. So I assume he'll maybe still be her Kingsguard, but just be in Alicent's pocket.
Yeah, quite
Or maybe
possibly.
switch and become like Alicent's guard instead.
Yeah.
I don't really know how it works, but
and then the other thing was one thing they have slightly changed from the books.
Yeah.
Is that Kristen Cole does kill Joffrey,
right?
Intentionally kills him, but in a tourney,
right?
Like I think it might be jousting or something, but like he kills him, but it's in a tourney, so it's kind of like, it might have been a mistake, but he does intentionally kill him. Whereas this is very blatant in the middle of a.
I guess the only way they can really smooth it over. I mean, if Alicent's on side, that's one thing. That's a good thing. They could easily say like, "Oh, Joffrey made a move that looked threatening."
He pulls a knife at one point.
Does he?
After he's already being beaten up,
right?
So Kristen could just be like, he pulled a knife out and was threatening somebody. I had to jump in.
Yeah.
They could easily play it off.
Just say he was threatening Rhaenyra, and then that's immediately, like the princess, the heir was, Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people be like, "Oh, you can't just have a Kingsguard just get away with murder in the middle of like a load of witnesses." And it's like, yeah, you can.
Definitely can. Yeah, I mean, ruined quite a good party, but
Yeah, I mean, in Game of Thrones, do you remember in like season 1 when Arya's friends with that kid?
Oh yeah,
and then like disarms Joffrey.
Yeah,
the Hound literally runs that kid down and just kills him. And it's like if you've got powerful friends, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Where was who's Joffrey's family?
He's long mouth.
Not anyone that's going to
Nobody
particularly come back
notable.
and
Yeah,
no.
that's the other thing as well. Like he's from a
Yeah.
minor house, so
'Cause-
it's not like he's a fucking star.
I mean,
or something.
Laenor will obviously hold it against him, and
Yeah.
that's going to be something that could be an issue.
Yeah,
I guess if we're looking at sides, which is kind of where we end most of these discussions, I guess Laenor is kind of if Alicent and Kristen are on one side, I mean, they're probably more than two sides in this. Alicent and Kristen are on one side, then Laenor by default would side with his wife,
yeah,
Rhaenyra. Daemon is now the wild card amongst these, and I thought it was going to be I still think that because of the throne heir situation, they're going to be at odds, but maybe not as obviously as I thought before.
Yeah,
he's kind of not. He was very much the enemy of the crown for like 3 episodes, and now he's kind of just been allowed to.
I think they've developed it really well to set up the pieces for what's to come.
Yeah. Do you think, based on where we are now, so the time skip is next episode?
Yeah. So it's goodbye to young Alicent and Rhaenyra, who have both been excellent.
Both been excellent, yeah. And I think Laenor as well, I saw as recast.
Yeah.
So he's going to be...
Baby Aegon.
Baby Aegon, I assume, as well. It'd be weird if he wasn't. What, between 5 and 10 years, we're thinking?
10 years.
10 years, yeah. So there'll be a lot changed. What was I going to say? Oh, where do you think... So the conflict that I don't know, the civil war of sorts that's gonna spring up. Do you see that being the end of this season, or do you think it's gonna start up earlier than that?
We've got
5 more episodes.
5 more episodes. I think this season they might do like a Game of Thrones style and have big episode 9 after effect. I think that 9 and 10 will be like, right, we're at war kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
So the next few episodes will be everyone as adults and the growing tension and sides building up until it gets to a breaking point.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting to see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see why. I mean, I assume lots will have happened in those 10 years, but because it's been such a busy 5 or so years so far, however long it's been, it'll be interesting to see both what's happened in that gap, and if not much has happened, because I assume we'd want to see a lot of it, why it's not happened.
Yeah,
I guess it's people biding their time and that sort of thing with, or maybe certain people have been like placated in certain ways.
I think we'll probably spend a lot of the first half of the next episode catching up with what's happened over the last 10 years.
Yeah, and they normally do that. So far, they've done all the catch-up stuff very organically. And it's been very smooth.
It's been very natural.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I think it will be the 10 years is a lot of like biding time and alliances being made.
And I suppose all this stuff might not skip as much. It might be like the month leading up to war from now onwards kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, because we've had, like
things
we say,
could happen quite quickly.
It could be like, but I think more like in the first season of Game of Thrones, where it was over a couple of months or whatever, a year. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, but I think because the events happening so far of like the wife dying, the baby dying, Rhaenyra being made heir, Daemon being exiled, coming back, exiled again, marrying Alicent, having a baby, Daemon coming back, Rhaenyra getting married, is stuff that's spread across 5 years, but they had to show it all because it's not like the war itself.
No,
you do have to do all that stuff in the first. Like,
I did
5
wonder
episodes.
about the whole recasting thing, and I was thinking it's weird that they have got this younger cast for 5 episodes,
but it's because they needed to show all this stuff. It makes
sense. Yeah, I wonder. Looking at the cast and the side by sides, I don't think people have too much of a problem if the performances are quite visibly different. which it shouldn't be,
No.
that could be an issue. But then they're 10 years older. They could be quite
I
different
think
people.
like the younger actresses were
Yeah.
literally cast due to their resemblance and mannerisms
Right.
compared to the older actresses.
Right, okay,
So I think because they've been good, it would just be it's because they're doing an impression of the older actresses, so
Okay,
it should
yeah.
be more natural.
Yeah.
Because they would have cast the older actresses to be in multiple seasons.
Yeah. Do we know what the kind of season count is looking like? I don't think they've said. I don't imagine it will be as long as as Game of Thrones.
No, it depends how long they stretch it out for.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
obviously,
if you think...
with Game of Thrones was like there was this war and then this war and then this
Yeah.
other war and this is all more contained with one family and one war.
Yeah. I suppose if they do like with Game of Thrones, really like a battle per season, you know, like a big battle. I don't know what the history and what the chronology is, so I don't really know. But yeah, just
they might make it short as well, so they can do their other spin-off projects.
That's the thing, yeah, because there's a couple in the works. Well, at least there was one before this that was pitched, wasn't it? That fell apart. I think
it was it the Duncan Egg one?
Maybe, yeah, or maybe it was
or the Conqueror.
I think maybe
it
might have been that, or maybe I don't know. I feel like there was another Targaryen one, so it might have been the Conquest.
Yeah.
Or maybe they pitched this once and then it fell through and then they got it back again. I don't
Quite
really
possibly.
know, either way, yeah, I'm still very much enjoying it. I think out of the 3 ongoing that we've got, Mrs. Hulk, Dragon House, and Power Rings, not Power Rangers, I think this is the most consistently good.
I like if we were rating episodes, like I think all of them would be like at least 8 so far. Like I am very much enjoying this the most.
It makes sense because I know Marvel have got a fairly decent track record with TV series, but Game of Thrones was, you know, top-notch TV. So it would be really upsetting and disappointing if this didn't learn from the lessons of Game of Thrones. Whereas, you know, Amazon doing a Lord of the Rings series could have gone anywhere. And it's very much in that early stages still, isn't it? So
but so it'll be intriguing to see the pieces after episode 5 of Dragon House. And I imagine we'll have lots to talk about next time round.
I certainly hope so.
As we step into Project October. It's very late. I'm usually in bed by now.
No, it's super late. This is one of the latest we've ever recorded.
Like for some reason it just took us ages
I mean, we've been doing incredibly long episodes as well. I'm looking forward to getting back to the hour and a half length episodes. I think this may be the longest episode we've ever recorded. No, maybe not. We some of my reports were pretty lengthy.
But we next time you hear from us will be Project October, and we'll start our spooky month,
spooky season.
But for now, if you enjoyed this, as always, well, not as always, if you've done it before, if you haven't done it before, give us 5 stars in your podcast listening application. Much appreciated. You can get in contact with us as well if you've got something really important to say, or someone you know, or general thoughts or ideas of stuff to do, whether it be news or projects. You can contact us directly.
Yes, you can send us an email at theprojectpod@gmail.com, or you can find all our social medias in the link tree in the episode description, or just search for us on any social media search bar. And you can also let us know if you want to recommend anything, or if you've got any suggestions for upcoming projects, maybe a Project October that we might not have thought of. You can let us know via those means.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening this week, and join us next week for Project October.
Ooh, the spookiest month of the year.
Ooh. All right. See you next week. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.